Just file for divorce. I don't want the kids." With those harsh words, my husband left the house, abandoning our 3-year-old twins and our newborn daughter. I had suspected he was cheating for some time, but between childcare and work, I had no energy to confront him. "I can't do this anymore." Just then, one of the twins clung to me, saying, "Mommy, we love you." Their worried faces looked up at me. Despite my anger towards my husband, something snapped in me at that moment. Well, I'll just file it, I thought. I signed the divorce papers with a smirk. He doesn't realize how much I've been supporting him. Unknowingly, he had begun his descent into hell. "I'll be home late again." How many times have I heard that? My name is Iris. I'm 34. We got married 4 years ago. He was 2 years younger, which led me to spoil him at first. The following year, we had twin girls, and 3 years later, another daughter. His return home began to get extremely late around the time our last child was born. I hope the third one is a boy. I've always dreamed of playing catch with him. He was excited during the pregnancy, but his attitude soured as soon as he found out it was another girl. At the hospital, he grimaced upon seeing our newborn daughter. "She doesn't look like me. She's not cute." Intense anger welled up inside me. How can you say your own child isn't cute? Maybe he was already considering divorce by then, even after I came home from the hospital. His sulkiness continued. He barely helped with childcare. Show a little interest in the kids. If you're short on hands, hire a babysitter or something. You've got savings from your job. I worked at a top-tier company, earning significantly more than most women my age. On the other hand, my husband struggled to keep a job, often quitting before I even noticed. Perhaps he was envious that I was more successful at work. At the time, he was also doing temporary work, unsure of how long it would last. I didn't expect any financial support from him, but I wished he'd at least fulfill his role as a father. Spend some time with the kids at night, at least. What a hassle. When I asked him to help, he did it reluctantly and so poorly that the girls were bored. He realized they weren't warming up to him, which he didn't like, leading to a terrible cycle. Eventually, he stopped helping with the kids altogether. "I'm tired from work. Let me rest on the weekends," he said. On weekends, he either stayed in his room or went out with someone. "I have to work this holiday. If you don't watch the kids, I have plans too. See you." My husband left without listening to me. I couldn't leave the children alone, so I often had to find a babysitter at the last minute. If this continued, it would surely destroy our marriage and harm our children. Thinking this, I decided to talk to my in-laws the next day. That's just how husbands are. A wife needs to be patient. More importantly, could you do that thing we talked about last time? My visit to my in-laws ended with them ignoring my concerns and asking for favors. My parents live far away, so it's hard to visit them. I feel guilty even calling, not knowing who to turn to. "Hey, make dinner." When I returned home in the evening, I was greeted by my husband in pajamas and a messy house. The kids, bored with their toys, instantly smiled upon seeing me. "Where have you been all this time?" "I had to stop by the in-laws for a bit." "Hurry up and make dinner. I'm starving." "If you've been home all day, couldn't you do some laundry or clean the bath?" Hearing this, my husband snorted in amusement. I decided not to do anything for someone who doesn't show gratitude. "What do you mean? I cleaned the bath yesterday, and you didn't thank me." "Didn't I say thank you?" "Not that. I mean, like, at least $100. He stretched out his hand, gesturing for money. What is he talking about? I must have looked distant, tired, and irritated. I pulled him aside to the bathroom so the kids wouldn't hear and retorted, "I am working, doing the chores, raising the kids, everything, and you have never thanked me. That's a wife's job." "Then what's your job?" "I work too." He barely earns $1,000 a month and does nothing around the house. Our argument lasted about an hour until, "Mommy, I'm hungry." My daughter's call snapped me out of it. My husband left in a huff, but I ignored him and rushed to prepare dinner. During these tense days, I discovered something: my husband is cheating. I confided in a college colleague who had divorced due to her husband's affairs, and she advised me to gather evidence immediately. To tell the truth, I had noticed my husband's affair some time ago, just before our youngest was born. I noticed a sweet fragrance on him, like perfume. When I casually asked him about it just after he got home, he broke into a sweat and started stuttering. In addition to that, he was coming home very late, talking less and less, and his attitude towards the children was changing. There were many signs, including the disappearance of intimacy, but what really convinced me was a certain event. There was a lipstick in the pocket of your jacket. It's mine. My lips get chapped. You're using Chanel's pink lipstick? Maybe it's my mom's. His evasive answer sounded like a lie. Then, as he hurriedly said, I need a bath, and stripped off his dress shirt on the way to the bathroom, I saw it. What is that? I sighed. It was clearly a hickey in a place usually covered by clothes. I was about to confront him but immediately thought better of it and decided to gather evidence first. Take your time warming up, I smiled sweetly, pretending I hadn't seen anything. The next day, I came home late from overtime. My daughters were already asleep, and the room was wrecked in silence. We need to talk. Only the dining room light was on, and there he stood, holding a piece of paper. I can't take this anymore. Let's get a divorce. What? Just file for divorce. I don't want the kids. Without waiting for my response, he handed me the divorce papers and left. Mommy. The sound of the door closing woke up the twins, who looked at me worriedly. It's okay. Sorry for waking you. Though I told my daughters it was okay, it clearly wasn't. He's reached his limit? That's my line. And what does he mean he doesn't want the kids? Mixed emotions swirled in my head, and I hadn't even noticed the tears streaming down my face. Mommy, we love you. Sensing something, the girls hugged me tightly. At that moment, I came to my senses. I can't go on like this. I can't worry these little girls. I realized that as long as I have my children, I'm happy, and this is what I should have done from the start. Well, I'll just file it. When I said this with a determined look on my face, my daughters smiled, and we all slept soundly that night. The next day, I filed the divorce papers first thing in the morning and called a certain person. Yes, please go ahead with it. It's my husband who will have trouble. The person on the phone listened to my story and took action. This was something I had considered before. If my husband betrayed me, I would end everything we had been doing. If that ruins his life, it's none of my business. 3 days later. Iris, where have you been? Waiting for me as I returned from work were my in-laws and my husband. My mother-in-law was furious, my father-in-law pale, and my husband seemed clueless, dragged along without understanding the situation. Have you been waiting at the front door all this time? That's kind of creepy. This is no time for that. What is this? My mother-in-law thrust a letter at me. It's a notice from a lawyer. I can see that much. Her face was tomato red as she raised her voice. I need to pick up my daughters, so excuse me. Ignoring them, I went inside, but my furious in-laws followed me into the living room, insisting on a discussion. Why would you suddenly send this? I don't understand. You would understand if you read the letter, wouldn't you? Using a lawyer, how cowardly. Despite being in the wrong, my MIL's outrage was something else, mixed with irritation and confusion. I was constantly thinking about how to convey my feelings. Then my husband, who seemed to understand nothing, finally spoke up. Are you upset because I divorced you? Filing some kind of complaint? My in-laws looked at him, dumbfounded. Of course, he had no idea what I had done for them all this time. Hey, I didn't hear about any divorce. Is that why this is happening? Such a useless son. What are you two so anxious for? You've ruined everything. Wait, what are we even talking about? As the conversation between them went nowhere, I watched coldly as my MIL slammed the table. Why did you divorce Iris? Well, my husband clammed up when things got uncomfortable. Since the conversation wasn't going anywhere, I decided to answer for him. He completely failed to fulfill his duties as a husband and father. There you go again. I told you that's just how men are, right? So you would forgive your husband if he had an affair? What? My MIL froze, clearly not expecting to hear that her son had been unfaithful. My husband tried to interject, but a sharp glare from me shut him up. Then, oddly, my FIL started defending his son. A man's affair is just a fling. It's not a problem. This is pointless. Please leave. All further communication will need to go through my lawyer. So what are you talking to a lawyer for now? You're agreeing to the divorce, right? My husband was confused, clueless about what was going on. Agreeing? I filed for divorce straight away. Then what is all this about? While arguing with my husband, my MIL suddenly started crying loudly. Paying $56,000 in one lump sum is impossible. What large sum? What are you talking about? Who's paying whom? Finally, the moment had come, time for my husband to regret. I proudly revealed what I had kept hidden until now. It was right after we got married 4 years ago. I was called to my in-laws' house alone, where my MIL said she had a serious matter to discuss. Nervous just because she was his mother, I was prepared to help however I could, but the words that came out of her mouth were shocking. "I need $60,000, she said out of the blue, leaving me utterly confused. As I hesitated, she bluntly asked about my salary. Unable to withstand her pressure, I admitted it was over $100,000, and her eyes lit up. Apparently, my FIL had gotten into horse racing, losing big amounts without ever winning, and had even accumulated debt. Desperate for $60,000 to cover his debts, she pleaded with me, and I couldn't say no, repeatedly insisting she would pay me back. 4 years passed, and all I got back was just $4,000. There were times when she repaid some only to borrow again. If I don't do something, I will never be able to collect the full amount. So I hired a lawyer and filed a lump sum claim for the remaining $56,000 in full. My husband's jaw dropped when he heard this, and I almost laughed. But we said we'd pay back little by little. Why suddenly in full? We're no longer family, so I thought I shouldn't hold back. Then my MIL, with a screech like a monkey, turned her fury towards my husband. "It's your fault for cheating, so you should be the one to pay it back." Huh? Why should I? We're not working anymore, and our pension won't cover it. If you want me to live in your parents' house, you'll do what I say. There was no way he could pay back $56,000 in one lump sum, especially since he was unemployed again at the time. "I'll live at Kate's place, so I won't pay. That's the name of your affair partner." As I grew increasingly absurd listening to this family quarrel, I decided it was time to deliver the final blow. "Don't think it ends with $56,000. I'm demanding $20,000 each from you and your affair partner as compensation, plus child support, of course." "What? It's only fair, leaving your children to play around? Where's the proof I cheated?" Had he forgotten so quickly about loudly declaring he'd live with Kate? Sighing, I handed him a pile of photos I had prepared for this moment. Looking at these made me sick. The photos were from his social media, showing him kissing and embracing his affair partner. Definitely a no-no, as confirmed by my lawyer. "Why do you have these?" A quick online search brought up your social media. "It's amazing you thought it wouldn't be found." My naive husband had kept posting cheerful photos in a public setting. He probably continued to use social networking sites without knowing how horrible they were. I was surprised that he was doing this, being mechanically inept, but it made it easy for me to gather evidence of his cheating. Even my in-laws were dumbfounded, gaping at him. "Please leave now. It's time to go to daycare. At least don't demand compensation from Kate. What if she runs away?" That's not my problem. With no resolution in sight, I forcefully kicked the family out. "Open this. Help me. I didn't know about the debt." I could hear my husband yelling through the door for a while. "I'm calling the police," I yelled, and the three of them shrugged and left. A year has passed since then. After paying me the compensation, the affair partner disappeared. Because of this, my ex-husband had to live at his parents' home, where they incessantly demanded he cover the $56,000. He ended up borrowing from shady lenders. While he managed to pay that off quickly, he still owes $20,000 in compensation for the affair and $500 a month in child support. Now he earns his daily wage by doing manual labor from morning to night. The interest on his debt is ballooning, and it might be impossible for him to pay it off in his lifetime. But that's none of my business. "Mommy, we're going to be late." Oops, my daughters are calling me to daycare. They're growing up so healthy and strong. That's all the happiness I need.
The inheritance letter trembled in my hands as I stared at the zeros trailing across the page. $5 million, the kind of money that could secure Connor's future, the specialized care and education he desperately needed. But I already knew what would happen next. The same thing that always happened when money entered our family's orbit. My name is Peyton, and I've spent the last 8 years watching my family live like royalty off my hard work, while feeding me empty promises about helping my son. Darling, you won't believe what just arrived. My mother Lucille's voice carried through the marble foyer of her unnecessarily massive house. The click of her Louboutins against the floor announced her approach before she appeared, perfectly coiffed as always. I quickly folded the letter and tucked it into my jacket pocket. Mum, we need to talk about Connor's therapy bills. She waved her hand dismissively. Oh, honey, not now. The caterers just called about Saturday's garden party, and I simply must have your opinion on the menu. She pulled out her phone, already scrolling through options. Mom, I'm serious. The specialized program costs. Peyton, please. You know we'll help with Connor when we can. But right now, your father and I have the club membership dues coming up, and Reagan's wedding shower to plan. She trailed off, distracted by something on her screen. I bit back the bitter taste in my mouth. The same club membership they'd been paying with my borrowed money for the past 3 years. The same promises they'd been making since Connor's diagnosis at age 3. There you are, Reagan breezed in, designer shopping bags dangling from her arms. Aunt Lucille, I found the perfect centerpieces for the shower. A little over budget, but they're absolutely divine. I watched them coo over crystal vases while my son's future sat heavy in my pocket. The same pocket I'd been emptying into their bank accounts for years, believing their promises that they'd help Connor when grandmother Regina's inheritance came through. Did you hear about the inheritance? Reagan asked suddenly, her eyes sharp despite her casual tone. What inheritance? Lucille's head snapped up. I forced a confused smile. No, what inheritance? The lie felt strange on my tongue, but something in Reagan's expression made me hold back. I'd seen that look before. The same one she wore when she convinced me to loan her money for her business venture that mysteriously never materialized. My phone buzzed, a text from Connor's teacher. Connor had a difficult day, need to discuss additional support services. I should go, I said, standing up. Connor needs me. Oh, that boy, Lucille sighed. If you just consider that residential facility we talked about. He's not going to a facility, Mom. He needs specialized education and therapy, which you promised. We promise a lot of things, darling. Life is complicated. She turned back to Reagan. Now, about those centerpieces. I walked out, their voices fading behind me. In my car, I pulled out the inheritance letter again. Grandmother Regina had always been different from the rest of them. She'd seen Connor for who he was, not as a burden to be managed. My phone lit up with another text, this time from my father Don. Your mother mentioned something about Regina's will. Call me. I started the car, my decision crystallizing with each turn of the wheel. 8 years I'd watched them spend my money on parties and luxuries while my son struggled. 8 years of broken promises and dismissive waves. At a red light, I pulled out my phone and called Angela, my aunt who'd always stood slightly apart from the family's extravagance. I got the letter, I said when she answered. I know. Her voice was quiet. They're already planning how to spend it. Not this time. My hands tightened on the steering wheel. I'm done watching them take everything while giving nothing back. Be careful, Peyton. You know how they get when money's involved. That's exactly why I'm done playing nice. I caught sight of my reflection in the rearview mirror and barely recognized the determination in my own eyes. They want to talk about inheritance. Let's talk about inheritance. But this time we're playing by my rules. As I pulled into Connor's school parking lot, I saw him waiting with his teacher, flapping his hands in that familiar way that meant he was overwhelmed. My beautiful, brilliant boy, who deserved so much more than empty promises and conditional love. Game on, I whispered, tucking the letter back into my pocket. The time for family loyalty was over. Now it was time for justice. The next morning, I arrived early at my parents' house, following the familiar sound of voices to their sun-drenched kitchen. I paused outside the door when I heard my name. Peyton's always been difficult, my mother was saying, especially since Connor. I mean, we love the boy, but she refuses to be practical about his situation. Have you seen the cost of those special schools she keeps talking about? Reagan's voice dripped with false concern. It would drain the inheritance in no time. I pressed myself against the wall, my heart hammering. They didn't know I was there yet. Regina always had a soft spot for her, my father added, but we can't let Peyton waste millions on my son. I stepped into the kitchen, making them all jump. Please finish that sentence, Dad. The silence was deafening. My mother recovered first, smoothing her silk blouse. Darling, we were just discussing. I heard exactly what you were discussing. I pulled out the inheritance letter and slapped it on the marble counter. And now we're going to discuss this. Reagan's eyes widened, darting between me and the letter. My mother snatched it up, her perfectly manicured nails crinkling the paper. 5 million, she breathed, then quickly composed herself. Well, of course, your grandmother meant this for the whole family. We'll need to discuss the most responsible way to... No. The word came out sharp enough to make her flinch. We won't, because there's nothing to discuss. The letter is addressed to me. But surely you understand, Reagan leaned forward, her voice honey-sweet, that Aunt Regina would want us to use this wisely. Those special needs programs you're looking at, they're so experimental, so uncertain. My phone buzzed. A video message from Connor's morning aide, my son beaming as he successfully completed his morning routine independently for the first time. The contrast between his pure joy and this room full of vipers made my chest ache. Uncertain? I held up my phone, playing the video. Look at him. Look at what he can do with just a little support. The support you all promised to help provide. Peyton, my father stepped forward. Be reasonable. We're family. Family? I laughed, and the sound was bitter even to my own ears. Family doesn't take hundreds of thousands of dollars from their daughter while promising to help their grandson, then spend it on garden parties and country club memberships. My mother's face went white. Those loans were what, Mom? Emergency assistance? Because I have the receipts, all of them. Every time you needed money for your lifestyle, while promising you'd help Connor once the inheritance came through. You're being dramatic, Reagan cut in. We all help each other. Really? I pulled out my phone again, opening my banking app. Should we go through the transfers? The $50,000 for your business venture that never existed. The $75,000 for Mom's kitchen remodel. Dad's boat. Now, see here. My father started, but I wasn't finished. I believed you. Every time you said you'd help Connor once you had the means. Well, now the means are here, and suddenly his needs are too experimental. My mother's face hardened. If you're going to be difficult about this, perhaps we should let the lawyers handle it. Perfect idea. I gathered up the letter. I'm sure they'll be very interested in the paper trail of where my money's been going these past 8 years, not to mention the tax implications. You wouldn't dare, she hissed. We're your parents. Watch me. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Mom, cancel my contribution to your garden party. I'm sure you understand. I need to be practical about my spending. Peyton, wait, Reagan called after me. We can work something out. Maybe if you let me manage the inheritance. I stopped, hand on the doorknob. You know what's funny? I actually came here hoping you'd prove me wrong. That you'd finally put Connor first, just once. The silence that followed told me everything I needed to know. I'll see you all at the garden party, I said, my voice steady despite the trembling in my hands. I think it's time everyone knew exactly what kind of family we really are. As I walked to my car, my phone buzzed again. Another video from Connor's aide, this time of him saying, "I love you, Mom," unprompted for the first time. I sat in my car, letting the tears fall freely. They weren't tears of sadness anymore, but of determination. My son was worth fighting for, and if my family wanted war, I'd give them one they'd never forget. I started the engine, already planning my next move. The garden party was in 3 days, and I had a story to tell. "You need to see this," Angela said, spreading documents across her kitchen table. The afternoon sun cast long shadows over bank statements, emails, and handwritten notes. I've been keeping track ever since Regina got sick. I picked up a paper with my mother's distinctive handwriting. What am I looking at? Evidence. Angela's normally gentle face was set with determination. Lucille's been planning this for years. Look at the date on that note. The note detailed plans for redirecting the inheritance, dated 3 years ago, right when my mother had convinced me to invest in their summer house renovation. There's more. Angela pulled out her laptop. Remember that business venture Reagan needed money for, the one that supposedly fell through? She pulled up a social media post showing Reagan on a yacht in the Mediterranean, dated the same week she'd claimed the business deal collapsed. Lost everything in the failed investment, the caption read, followed by a laughing emoji. My hands clenched into fists. They were never going to help Connor, were they? No, honey. Angela touched my arm. But Regina knew. Why do you think she left everything directly to you? A knock at the door made us both jump. Angela peered through the peephole, then quickly opened it. Get in here, quick. Reagan slipped inside, looking uncharacteristically disheveled. Peyton, thank God you're here. You have to help me. I stood up, gathering the papers. I think you've got that backwards. No, listen. She grabbed my arm. Aunt Lucille's losing it. After you left, she started making calls. She's trying to get the inheritance invalidated, claiming you're an unfit mother because of Connor's condition. The room went cold. She's what? She's gathering statements from Connor's old teachers, the ones who suggested residential care. She's building a case that you're emotionally unstable and can't manage the money responsibly. Angela cursed under her breath. That sounds like Lucille. Why are you telling me this? I studied Reagan's face. Why now? Because... Reagan's eyes filled with tears. Because I saw Connor's video, the one from this morning, and I remembered when we were kids how Regina always said family meant protecting each other, not using each other. I wanted to believe her, but 8 years of betrayal made it hard. Prove it. She pulled out her phone, hands shaking. I recorded Mom and Aunt Lucille talking about their plans, about all of it, the money they took from you, the lies about helping Connor, everything. The recording played, my mother's voice crystal clear. Once we get control of the inheritance, we'll put that boy somewhere he can get proper care, and Peyton can finally stop this ridiculous crusade. My father's voice, but the money she loaned us, we'll call them gifts, my mother replied. She has no proof otherwise. Who would believe her over us? I stopped the recording, feeling sick. When was this? An hour ago. Reagan looked at her feet. I'm sorry, Peyton. I knew what they were doing was wrong, but I never thought they'd go this far. Angela was already at her desk, pulling out more files. I have copies of every transfer, every promise they made in writing. They can't fight this. They can try. I sat down heavily. And they might win. You know how influential they are in this town. Not for long. Reagan's voice had hardened. The garden party on Saturday. Everyone who matters will be there, including Judge Martinez, who handles family court cases. I looked up sharply. What are you suggesting? I'm suggesting, she smiled grimly, that it's time for the truth to come out. All of it. In front of everyone who's ever believed my mother's lies. Angela nodded slowly. Regina would have wanted that. She always said the truth has a way of setting things right. My phone buzzed. Connor's afternoon therapist sending his daily progress report. My beautiful boy was thriving, growing, proving everyone wrong who'd ever underestimated him. Okay, I said, standing up, but if we do this, we do it my way. No more games, no more schemes. Just the plain, ugly truth. I have something else you should see, Angela said, pulling out one final envelope. Regina left this with me before she died. She said to give it to you when you were ready to stand up to them. Inside was a letter, and as I read it, tears blurred my vision. It was everything. Every manipulation, every lie, every broken promise, documented in my grandmother's careful hand. Saturday, I said, folding the letter carefully. We'll let them have their perfect garden party. And then we'll show everyone exactly who they really are. Reagan picked up her phone. I'll make sure the right people are there. And I'll bring the receipts, Angela added. Looking at them both, my aunt who'd always stood in the shadows, my cousin finally choosing the right side. I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. The war was just beginning, but for the first time, I wasn't fighting alone. The day before the garden party, I walked into my parents' house unannounced, clutching a folder of documents. My mother was directing staff setting up for tomorrow's event, her voice sharp with irritation. The roses go on the left, not the... Peyton. She froze mid-gesture. What are you doing here? Family meeting, I announced, loud enough for my father to hear in his study. Now. We're rather busy. Now, Mom. Or I start making phone calls to your garden party guests about some interesting financial matters. Her face tightened, but she called out, Don, come here, please. My father emerged, looking wary. Peyton, this isn't a good time. Sit down. I pulled out 3 bank statements and laid them on the coffee table. Let's talk about Connor's therapy fund. My mother's eyes narrowed. What about it? The one you emptied last year for your spa renovation? I pushed the statement toward her. The money I specifically saved for Connor's speech therapy. We explained that, my father started. Or maybe we should discuss the college fund Grandmother Regina set up for Connor. I laid out another statement. The one you convinced me to let you invest right before your cruise to the Bahamas. My mother's face flushed red. How dare you come into my house and make accusations? They're not accusations when I have proof. I pulled out my phone, playing Reagan's recording. Their own voices filled the room, discussing their plans to declare me unfit. The color drained from my father's face. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her wine glass. Where did you get that? She whispered. Does it matter? What matters is I have it, along with every email, every text, every transfer receipt from the past 8 years. I leaned forward. Did you really think I wouldn't keep records? We are your parents, my mother hissed. Everything we've done has been for this family's benefit. No, I stood up, my voice shaking with rage. Everything you've done has been for your benefit. While my son, your grandson, struggled without the support he needed, support you promised to provide. That boy needs more than any of us can give, my father said weakly. That boy is your grandson. And he's thriving, no thanks to you. I pulled out my phone again, showing them Connor's latest therapy video. Look at him. Really look at him. He's making incredible progress with just the bare minimum of support. Imagine what he could do with the resources you promised him. My mother turned away from the video. What do you want? I want you to stop trying to invalidate the inheritance. I want you to back off and let me use it the way Grandmother Regina intended, to help Connor. Or what? My mother's voice was dangerous. Or tomorrow, at your precious garden party, everyone learns the truth. Every detail, every betrayal, every penny you stole from your grandson's future to maintain your lifestyle. You wouldn't dare. But there was fear in her eyes now. Try me. I gathered my documents. You have until noon tomorrow to call off your lawyers and sign these papers confirming you won't contest the inheritance. If you don't, I start talking to everyone. This will destroy this family, my father pleaded. You already did that. I headed for the door, then turned back. Oh, and Mom, remember Judge Martinez, who you're counting on to help you. His grandson is autistic. I wonder how he'll feel about what you've been doing to Connor. My mother's wine glass shattered on the floor. Noon tomorrow, I repeated. And if you try anything between now and then, if you make one move against me or Connor, the recording goes public immediately. Outside, my hands were shaking so badly I could barely get my key in the car door. My phone buzzed, a text from Angela. Did you do it? It's done, I typed back. They know what's coming if they don't back down. Another text came through, this time from Reagan. Mum's calling everyone in a panic. It's working. I started my car just as my father came running out of the house. Peyton, wait, we can discuss this. I rolled down my window. Noon tomorrow, Dad, not a minute later. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of my mother in the window, phone pressed to her ear, gesturing frantically. The carefully curated image she'd maintained for so long was cracking, and she knew it. My phone rang, Connor's aide. He had an amazing day today, she said when I answered. He wrote his whole name by himself. Tears pricked my eyes. That's wonderful. I'll be there to pick him up in 10 minutes. I ended the call, feeling stronger than ever. Tomorrow would either end this war or escalate it beyond repair. Either way, I was ready. For Connor, I was ready for anything. The garden party was in full swing when I arrived at exactly noon. Crystal glasses clinked, string quartet music floated through the air, and my mother's social circle buzzed with their usual self-importance. My mother stood near the rose garden, checking her watch every few seconds. "You're late," she snapped when I approached. "It's exactly noon." I held up my phone displaying the time. "Where are the papers?" She glanced nervously at her guests. "This isn't the time or place. Then I guess I should go talk to Judge Martinez." I turned toward the distinguished man by the fountain. "I'm sure he'd be interested in—" "Wait!" She grabbed my arm. "Don has the papers in his study, but please, can we do this quietly?" I followed her inside, where my father sat behind his desk, looking defeated. The papers lay unsigned in front of him. "Sign them," I said. "Peyton, please." My mother tried one last time. "Think about what you're doing to this family's reputation, like you thought about Connor's future when you emptied his therapy fund." A noise from the doorway made us turn. Reagan stood there with Angela and, to my shock, Judge Martinez himself. "I hope I'm not interrupting," the judge said, his eyes sharp. But Reagan here was just telling me a fascinating story about misappropriated funds meant for autism therapy. My mother's face went pale. "This is a private family matter, is it?" The judge stepped forward. "Because as head of the family court and someone who personally understands the challenges of raising a child with autism, I'm very interested in this situation." My father's pen shook as he quickly signed the papers. My mother looked like she might faint. "Now," the judge continued, "shall we discuss this in private, or would you prefer to address your guests?" "You planned this?" my mother accused, glaring at me. "No, Mom. You planned this years ago, when you decided your lifestyle was more important than your grandson's needs." The string quartet music drifted in through the windows, along with the murmur of guests surely wondering where their hostess had gone. "Sign the papers, Mom," Reagan said quietly, "or I start playing the recording out there." My mother snatched the pen and signed, tears of rage in her eyes. "You've ruined everything." "Actually," Judge Martinez interjected, "I believe you did that yourself. And we're not quite finished. There's the matter of the funds that were, shall we say, misappropriated." "I have all the documentation here," Angela stepped forward, holding up a thick folder. The next hour passed in a blur of legal terms and negotiations. By the end, my parents had agreed to repay every penny they'd taken from Connor's accounts, with interest. The judge made it clear that if they didn't comply, they'd face much worse consequences than social embarrassment. "Now," I said, gathering the signed papers, "you have a garden party to host. I suggest you put on your best smile and pretend everything's fine. It's what you're good at, right?" My mother straightened her designer dress, tears still threatening to fall. "You'll regret this." "No, Mom. The only thing I regret is believing your promises for 8 years while Connor suffered." As they headed back to their guests, Reagan touched my arm. "I recorded everything, just in case they try to back out." "Thank you." I turned to the judge. "And thank you for coming." He smiled sadly. "My grandson is the same age as Connor." The thought of someone denying him care for the sake of luxury. He shook his head. "You did the right thing." Outside, the party continued as if nothing had happened, but I noticed several guests watching my parents with newfound suspicion. Whispers followed my mother as she tried to maintain her usual commanding presence. My phone buzzed with a text from Connor's weekend sitter. "Connor asked when you're coming home. He made something for you." I think that's my cue to leave, I said to Angela and Reagan. Go, Angela hugged me. We'll keep an eye on things here. As I walked to my car, I heard my mother's strained voice carrying across the garden. No, everything's fine, just a small family matter. But it wasn't fine, and we all knew it. Her carefully constructed facade was cracking, and through those cracks, everyone could finally see the truth. My phone buzzed again with a photo, Connor beaming proudly next to a painting he'd made. The colors were bright and hopeful, just like his future would be now. I started the car, leaving behind the sound of clinking crystal and forced laughter. The war wasn't over. My mother would never forgive this humiliation. But I'd won the battle that mattered most. Connor would get everything he needed, and no amount of garden parties could cover up the truth anymore. A week after the garden party, I sat across from my mother's lawyer in his plush office, watching him squirm as he read through the documents Angela had compiled. Mrs. Craig, he cleared his throat, I must advise you to drop this matter immediately. Excuse me. My mother's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. These records, he spread out the papers. Bank transfers, emails, recorded conversations. The evidence is overwhelming. If this goes to court, you'll lose everything. But the inheritance is ironclad, he cut her off, and attempting to challenge it now would only expose your previous financial activities to legal scrutiny. My mother's hands trembled as she reached for her water glass. I want a different lawyer. You can try, he said, standing up, but any competent attorney will tell you the same thing. I'm withdrawing from this case. He turned to me. Ms. Craig, I apologize for any distress this has caused you and your son. After he left, my mother sat in stunned silence. For the first time in my life, I saw her looking truly defeated. It's over, Mum, I said quietly. Just let it go. Let it go? She laughed bitterly. Do you know what people are saying about us? The calls I'm getting. The club is reviewing our membership. Maybe you should have thought about that before. A knock interrupted us. Reagan poked her head in. Sorry, but you need to see this. She held up her phone, showing a social media post from one of my mother's closest friends. Heartbroken to learn how the Craig family treated their own grandson. As a grandmother myself, I cannot stand by silently. It's going viral, Reagan said. Everyone's sharing it. My mother grabbed her phone, frantically scrolling. Her face went ashen. They're talking about the truth, I finished for her. That's what happens when it finally comes out. Her phone started ringing, the country club president's name flashing on the screen. She declined the call with shaking fingers. What do you want? She whispered. Money? Public apology? What will make this stop? I want what I've always wanted, I said. I want you to acknowledge what you did to Connor. I want you to make it right. How? Start by repaying everything you took. Then, maybe consider actually being a grandmother to him. She looked up sharply. You'd still allow that? That depends on you. He's not a burden to be managed or a problem to be solved. He's your grandson, and he's amazing. My phone buzzed. Connor's new specialized teacher sending a video. I played it for them. Connor successfully completing a complex task, his face lighting up with achievement. This, I said, is what proper support looks like. This is what your garden parties and club memberships stole from him. Reagan wiped tears from her eyes. He's incredible. Yes, he is. I stood up. So what's it going to be, Mum? Are you ready to be part of his success story, or do you want to keep fighting a battle you've already lost? She stared at the phone screen, where Connor's video was still playing. For a moment, I saw something crack in her perfect mask, something that looked almost like regret. I don't know how, she admitted quietly. Start by coming to his therapy session tomorrow, I said. Just watch, learn, see who he really is, not who you assumed he was. Another call came through on her phone, this time from her closest friend at the club. She declined it again. Your social circle is crumbling, Reagan observed. Maybe it's time to build something real instead. My mother was silent for a long moment, watching Connor's video loop again. Finally, she looked up. What time tomorrow? 10 a.m., I said. Don't be late. As Reagan and I left the lawyer's office, she grabbed my arm. Do you really think she'll come? I don't know, I admitted, but for the first time she's facing real consequences. Sometimes that's what it takes to change. My phone buzzed with a text from Angela. Don just called. He wants to know if he can come to Connor's therapy too. I showed Reagan the message. She smiled. Maybe there's hope after all. Maybe, I agreed, but this time, they have to earn it. Walking to my car, I felt lighter than I had in years. The war wasn't over, but the battlefield had shifted. Now, instead of fighting against my family, maybe, just maybe, we could start fighting for Connor together. But first, they had to prove they deserved the chance. At exactly 9:55 a.m., my parents' luxury SUV pulled into the therapy center's parking lot. I watched from the window as my mother checked her reflection, then actually wiped her eyes before stepping out. They came. Connor's therapist, Sarah, whispered beside me. Are you ready for this? No, I admitted, but Connor is. My son sat at his therapy table, arranging his cards with focused determination. He'd made so much progress in just the few weeks since I'd secured the inheritance and started his intensive program. The door chimed. My parents entered, looking completely out of place in their designer clothes. Hi, buddy, my father said awkwardly. Connor continued arranging his cards, not looking up. He needs time to process new people in his space, Sarah explained gently. Why don't you sit and observe? My mother perched on the edge of her chair like she was afraid it might bite her. What is he doing? Creating a visual schedule, I explained. It helps him understand and prepare for his day. Done, Connor announced proudly, looking up. His eyes landed on my parents and he tilted his head. Grandma? Grandpa? Yes, sweetheart. My mother's voice cracked slightly. We came to see you. Connor turned to me. They came to see me? They did, I nodded. Would you like to show them what you've been working on? He considered this for a moment, then grabbed his communication tablet. With quick, practiced movements, he pulled up his latest achievement, a complex series of sentences he'd constructed himself. Look, he said, pressing play. The tablet spoke in its electronic voice. My name is Connor. I am 8 years old. I like dinosaurs and numbers. I am smart and strong. My father made a choked sound. My mother pressed her hand to her mouth. That's remarkable, she whispered. When did he learn to do that? 3 weeks ago, Sarah said. Once he had access to the right tools and support, Connor's progress has been extraordinary. Connor beamed at the praise, then turned back to his tablet. Grandma, want to see my dinosaurs? My mother's perfect makeup was definitely smeared now. Yes, sweetheart, I'd love to. For the next hour, we watched Connor work through his therapy sessions. He showed them his new skills, his coping strategies, his achievements. With each demonstration, my parents' rigid postures softened slightly. He's not just managing, my father said quietly. He's thriving. This is what I've been trying to tell you, I replied. This is what your money games almost cost him. My mother flinched. Peyton, Not now, I cut her off. This is Connor's time. After the session, Connor gave them both a high five, a huge step for him with new people, before heading off with Sarah to his next activity. In the waiting room, my mother finally broke. I was wrong, she sobbed. We were so wrong. Yes, you were, I agreed. The question is, what are you going to do about it? My father pulled out his checkbook. We've already started liquidating assets. The first repayment will be... I don't just mean the money, I interrupted. Connor needs grandparents who see him, who support him, who celebrate who he is instead of trying to change him. Tell us how, my mother said. Please, I want to learn. There's a grandparent support group here, Sarah said, joining us. They meet every Thursday. They learn about autism, share experiences, find ways to connect with their grandchildren. My parents exchanged looks. Thursday is our club lunch, my mother said slowly. Then, straightening her shoulders, I'll cancel our membership. Mom! No, she held up her hand. You were right, all of it. The club, the parties, the image, none of it matters. I want to know my grandson, the real Connor, not the Connor I imagined or feared. My father nodded. We both do. It won't be easy, I warned them. You've got a lot to make up for. We know, my mother said, but we'd like to try, really try this time. Connor's laugh echoed from the therapy room, that pure, joyful sound that always made my heart soar. My parents turned toward it, and for the first time, I saw something new in their eyes, not pity, not embarrassment, but wonder. Thursday then, I said, don't be late. As they left, I watched them walk to their car, heads close together, talking intently. My phone buzzed with a text from Reagan. How did it go? I typed back. They're joining the grandparent support group. Her response came quickly. Holy shit. Maybe miracles do happen. Maybe they did. But this wasn't just a miracle. It was the result of standing firm, demanding better, and finally making them see the truth that had been there all along. Connor wasn't the one who needed to change. They were. Happy birthday, Connor. The small group gathered in our backyard sang as my son beamed at his dinosaur-themed cake. No fancy country club party, no excessive decorations, just the people who truly mattered. My mother stepped forward with a wrapped gift. Can I give him mine first? I nodded, watching as Connor carefully unwrapped the package, a skill he'd mastered in his occupational therapy sessions. It's a communication device, he exclaimed, examining the sleek tablet. Like at therapy. So you can have one at our house too, my mother explained, her voice soft. For when you visit. Connor launched himself at her in a rare, spontaneous hug. My mother's eyes met mine over his head, filled with tears of joy instead of shame. Look what Aunt Reagan and I made, Angela called, wheeling out a giant poster board. Connor gasped as he saw what it was. A visual schedule for the next 6 months, including his therapy sessions, school activities, and planned visits with grandparents. You included our Thursday museum trips, he noted, pointing to the recurring picture. Of course, my father said. We wouldn't miss those. He'd been taking Connor to the Natural History Museum every Thursday after his support group meetings, learning to connect with his grandson through their shared love of dinosaurs. Reagan approached me with a thick envelope. Speaking of not missing things, she handed it to Connor. Open it, buddy. Inside were printed screenshots of bank transfers. The final repayments from my parents, with significant interest. But what made me catch my breath was the additional transfer. Reagan's entire inheritance from Regina, signed over to Connor's trust fund. I don't need it, she said quietly. He does, and it's what Regina would have wanted. Reagan, I can't. Yes, you can. Consider it 8 years of aunt duties I need to make up for. A squeal of delight interrupted us. Connor had discovered the small swimming pool we'd installed for his water therapy sessions. Can I try it now? He asked, using his new tablet to form the question perfectly. After cake, I promised. Remember our schedule? He nodded seriously, pointing to the timeline we'd created. Cake first, then swimming, following the plan. My mother touched my arm. Peyton, there's something else we need to tell you. She nodded to my father, who cleared his throat. We've sold the country club membership and the summer house. We're using the money to start a foundation. A foundation? For families like yours, my mother explained, to help provide therapy and support services for children with autism. We're calling it Connor's Bridge. I stared at them, speechless. Judge Martinez is helping us set it up, my father added. He says there's a huge need for it in our community. Mom, Dad, we can't undo what we did, my mother said, but we can try to prevent other families from facing the same struggles. Connor's voice cut through the emotion. Cake time now, following the schedule. Everyone laughed, gathering around the table as Connor carefully cut his cake using the adaptive tools Sarah had provided. I watched my son, confident, supported, thriving, surrounded by people who finally saw him for the amazing person he was. You know, Angela said beside me, Regina would be proud, not just of Connor, but of you. You fought for him when it would have been easier to give in. We all did in the end, I replied, watching Reagan help Connor serve the first slice to my mother, who was actually wearing jeans for the first time in probably decades. More than that, Angela smiled. You helped them become better people. Look at them now. She was right. My mother, who once cringed at Connor's stimming, was now patiently waiting as he explained each dinosaur decoration on the cake. My father, who'd wanted to hide Connor away, was proudly filming every moment on his phone. Ready for swimming after cake, Connor announced, using his tablet to emphasize his excitement. Following the schedule, everyone responded in unison, our new family motto, as I watched Connor enjoy his birthday, surrounded by genuine love and support. I realized something profound. Our story wasn't just about revenge or justice. It was about transformation. My parents hadn't just repaid money. They'd rebuilt themselves into the grandparents Connor deserved. "Mom," Connor called, holding out a piece of cake. "Sit with me?" I joined my son, accepting the perfectly cut slice. Around us, our small but mighty family continued celebrating, all pretense and performance stripped away, replaced by something real and precious. We'd lost the facade of a perfect family, but we'd gained something better, a true one, built on understanding, acceptance, and love. Just like Connor's schedule, we were following a new plan now, one that finally put him first.
The first thing I noticed when I walked through my front door wasn't the lingering smell of antiseptic still clinging to my skin, or even the dull ache from my surgery site. It was the unfamiliar designer purse sitting on my entryway table, right next to the family photos I'd carefully arranged over the years. I'm Hope, and this is the story of how I dismantled my husband's entire life in exactly 37 days. "Honey, you're home early," Melvin's voice carried from the kitchen, tinged with something I'd never heard before: panic. "The doctor said you'd be in until tomorrow." "They cleared me for home recovery," I called back, my fingers trailing over the smooth leather of the stranger's purse. Guess I'm healing faster than expected. The sound of hurried whispers and shuffling feet made my stomach clench. I'd spent 15 years of marriage learning Melvin's patterns, his tells, his lies. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened next. She emerged from my kitchen wearing my favorite apron, the one my mother had given me for Christmas. Young, gorgeous, and completely unapologetic. "Hi, I'm Skylar. Melvin's told me so much about you." My hand gripped the doorframe until my knuckles turned white. "Funny, he's never mentioned you." Melvin appeared behind her, his face flushed. "Hope, let me explain. Skylar's been helping around the house while you've been indisposed. I didn't want you to worry about things while recovering." "Things?" I echoed, watching as Skylar's hand settled possessively on my husband's arm. "The cooking, the cleaning," Skylar chirped, as if this was the most natural situation in the world. "Melvin mentioned you're usually so busy with work. I thought I could help ease the burden." I forced a smile, years of corporate negotiations finally proving useful in my personal life. "How thoughtful. And where exactly did you two meet?" "At the gym." Melvin cut in quickly. "She's a personal trainer." Of course she was. I glanced at her perfectly toned body, then down at my own hospital gown-creased clothes. "Well, isn't that convenient?" My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Faith. "Made it home okay? Call me." "I should get settled in," I said, starting toward the stairs. "Doctor's orders, lots of rest." "Let me help you." Melvin moved toward me, but I held up a hand. "I've got it. You two seem busy." In our bedroom, my bedroom, I noticed the changes immediately. Her clothes in my closet, her toiletries on my vanity, the guest room sheets on our bed, because of course she'd been sleeping here. My hands shook as I dialed Faith's number. "Hope, are you okay?" Faith's voice was instant comfort. He moved her in. The words came out in a whisper. "While I was having surgery, my husband moved his mistress into our house. That son of a..." Faith's curse was cut short by my laugh, hollow and sharp. Want to know the best part? I found something this morning before checking out of the hospital. I was using Melvin's laptop to check our joint account and a notification popped up. There's another account, Faith, one I never knew about with regular transfers to Alan's private holdings. Alan? His business partner? The same. I moved to the window, watching as Skylar's red convertible sat in my driveway like a wound. I took pictures of everything before the notification disappeared. Whatever they're doing, it's not legal. And now what? I touched my surgery scar through my shirt, thinking of how Melvin hadn't even visited me in the hospital. How he'd been too busy with work to drive me there. How everything suddenly made terrible, perfect sense. Now I'm going to take everything from him, I said quietly. The house, the business, his reputation, everything. And I'm going to make him watch while I do it. Hope. Faith's voice was careful. Are you sure? Revenge isn't always... This isn't just revenge, I interrupted, watching as Melvin and Skylar shared a kiss in my kitchen window. This is justice. He didn't just betray our marriage, he's been betraying everything we built together. And I'm going to need your help. There was a pause. Then Faith sighed. I'm in. What's the plan? I smiled, remembering the business card Andy, my attorney, had slipped me during my last divorce consultation, the one Melvin didn't know about. First, we're going to need to make some calls, starting with a very interesting conversation with Alan's wife about some suspicious transactions. Downstairs, I could hear them laughing, probably thinking I was safely tucked away, nursing my wounds. They had no idea that while they were playing house, I was declaring war. Get some rest, Faith said. I'll be there first thing tomorrow. I hung up, my reflection in the window overlaying their embrace in the kitchen. Enjoy it while it lasts, I whispered, because this is just the beginning. Faith arrived early the next morning, armed with coffee and her signature no-nonsense attitude. She took one look at Skylar making smoothies in my kitchen and practically dragged me to the back patio. Okay, this is worse than I imagined, she whispered, sliding me a cup of real coffee, not the green juice Skylar had tried to force on me earlier. She's actually playing house in your house. Playing is the right word, I said, pulling out my phone. Look what I found when I went through Melvin's desk last night. I showed her the photos I'd taken of the account statements. Faith's eyes widened as she scrolled through them. Holy shit, Hope. These transfers, they're huge. And they're all going to offshore accounts? Through Alan's company first, I confirmed. I already sent everything to Andy. He's meeting us at his office in an hour. The patio door slid open and Skylar stepped out, all perky energy and fake concern. Hope, you shouldn't be out in this cold air after your surgery. Melvin specifically asked me to take care of you. I'm fine, I said, standing up. Actually, Faith is taking me to my follow-up appointment. Oh, I can drive you. No need, Faith cut in, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. I've got it covered. Andy's office was exactly what you'd expect from a top-tier divorce attorney. All leather and mahogany with a view of downtown that probably cost more than my car. He greeted us with a grim smile. These documents you sent, he said, getting straight to business. They're exactly what we needed, but we have to move carefully. One wrong step and they'll know we're coming. What's our first move? I asked, settling into one of his plush chairs. First, we document everything. Every interaction, every receipt, every time she sleeps in your bed. Second, we start tracking those transfers. I've got a forensic accountant friend who owes me a favor. Faith leaned forward. What about Alan? Could we use him? Andy's smile widened. Funny you should ask. His wife called my office this morning. Apparently, someone anonymous sent her some very interesting bank statements. I tried to hide my own smile. How unfortunate for him. Here's what we're going to do, Andy said, pulling out a legal pad. Hope, you're going to play the perfect unsuspecting wife. Let them think you're too focused on recovery to notice anything. Meanwhile, we'll start gathering evidence. Faith, I need you to be her eyes and ears when she can't be there. Done, Faith said without hesitation. I can also talk to some people at the country club. Melvin's not exactly subtle. There might be others who've noticed things. Perfect. Andy turned to me. And Hope, I know this will be hard, but you need to stay calm no matter what they do. The moment they suspect something, this all falls apart. I thought about Skylar wearing my clothes, sleeping in my bed, using my things. I can handle it. There's one more thing, Andy said, his expression serious. These financial records, this isn't just about divorce anymore. This is fraud, possibly money laundering. When we move, it has to be all at once. They can't have time to hide the money or destroy evidence. How long? I asked. Give me 2 weeks to get everything in order. Use that time to gather what you can. And Hope? He caught my eye. Don't let them see you coming. Back in the car, Faith gripped the steering wheel tight. Can you really do this? Live with them, pretend everything's okay? I watched the city scroll past the window. You know what Melvin said to me this morning? He said he was trying to make this easier for me. Like moving his mistress into our home while I was having surgery was some kind of favor. Bastard. The thing is, I continued, he actually believes it. He thinks I'm so weak, so dependent on him, that I'll accept anything to keep our marriage. He has no idea who I really am. Faith reached over and squeezed my hand. Show him. When we pulled up to my house, Skylar's car was gone, but there was a strange man leaving through the front door. He looked familiar, one of Alan's accountants, I realized. Looks like they're already scrambling, Faith observed. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Alan. Good. Let them scramble. You're scary when you're plotting revenge, you know that? I thought about the years I'd spent building a life with Melvin, all while he was building something else behind my back. I'm not plotting revenge, I said, opening the car door. I'm delivering justice. There's a difference. And what's the difference? I smiled, thinking of the evidence safely stored in Andy's office. Revenge is emotional. Justice is strategic. And I'm very, very good at strategy. The confrontation with Skylar happened on a Tuesday afternoon, exactly 9 days into my surveillance operation. I'd been documenting everything meticulously. Photos, videos, conversations recorded on my phone, when she cornered me in the laundry room. We need to talk, she said, blocking the doorway. About your snooping. I continued folding laundry, careful to keep my voice neutral. I live here. It's not snooping. I saw you in Melvin's office last night, going through his desk. She crossed her arms, trying to look intimidating. He won't like that. Interesting. I set down the towel I was folding. Are you going to tell him? Because I have some things to tell him too. Like how you've been meeting Alan at the Riverside Hotel every Thursday. Her face went pale. How did you... Or maybe we should discuss those interesting phone calls you've been making to his competitor's office. I pulled out my phone, showing her the call log I'd obtained. 4 calls last week alone. Melvin might be interested in that. You're bluffing. Try me. I stepped closer. You're not the only one who can play games, Skylar. The difference is, I'm better at them. She grabbed my arm. Listen, you bitter old... The sound of the front door opening cut her off. Faith's voice rang through the house. Hope, you ready for lunch? I yanked my arm free, smiling as I noticed the red marks her fingers had left. Perfect. In here, Faith, just documenting some interesting bruises from our house guest. Faith appeared in the doorway, phone already recording. Got it all on video, honey. Want me to send it to Andy now or later? Skylar backed away, her confidence evaporating. This isn't over. Actually, I said, it's just beginning. After she stormed out, Faith lowered her phone. That was beautiful, but she'll run straight to Melvin. I'm counting on it. I pulled out my own phone, sending a quick text to Andy. Because in about 10 minutes, Alan's wife is going to call Melvin about some very interesting credit card charges at the Riverside Hotel. Faith's eyes widened. You didn't. I did. And when Melvin confronts Alan, he'll mention Skylar's calls to their competitor. By dinner, they'll all be too busy suspecting each other to notice what we're really doing. Right on cue, my phone buzzed with a text from Andy. Alan's wife made the call. Stand by for fireworks. We didn't have to wait long. Within an hour, Melvin's car screeched into the driveway. He burst through the front door, face red with anger. Skylar, he shouted. Get down here. I sat calmly at the kitchen island, pretending to read a magazine while Faith worked on her laptop nearby. Skylar descended the stairs, looking nervous. What's this about you meeting Alan? Melvin demanded. What? Who told you that? His wife just called me. Said you've been meeting him at hotels, making calls to our competitors. He turned, finally noticing me. Did you know about this? I looked up innocently. Know about what? I've been focusing on my recovery, remember? Like you wanted. The front door opened again and Alan stormed in. Melvin, we need to talk. Now. About how you've been sleeping with my girlfriend? About how your girlfriend's been selling our information to Jackson Industries. I caught Faith's eye across the kitchen. She was still recording everything, trying not to smile. That's ridiculous, Skylar protested. Melvin, he's lying. Then explain these. Alan threw down a stack of phone records. And the hotel receipts. As they argued, I quietly slipped upstairs to Melvin's office. With everyone distracted, it was the perfect time to grab the final piece of evidence we needed, his external hard drive. I found it exactly where Faith's friend from IT said it would be, hidden in a false bottom drawer. When I returned downstairs, the argument had escalated. Skylar was crying, Melvin was shouting, and Alan was threatening to dissolve their partnership. Maybe, I suggested quietly. You should all take this somewhere else. The neighbors might hear. They left in separate cars, Skylar trailing after Melvin despite his obvious fury. As soon as they were gone, Faith burst out laughing. That was incredible. Did you get it? I held up the hard drive. Every transaction, every email, every dirty little secret. Andy's going to have a field day with this. And they have no idea you orchestrated the whole thing. Faith shook her head in admiration. You know they're going to destroy each other trying to figure out who's betraying who. I connected the hard drive to Faith's laptop, watching as years of fraudulent transactions appeared on the screen. That's the beauty of karma. Sometimes it just needs a little push in the right direction. What's next? I thought about the divorce papers sitting in Andy's office, ready to be served. Now we let them tear each other apart. By the time I make my move, there won't be anything left to fight over. My mother always had impeccable timing. She showed up unannounced the morning after the confrontation, taking one look at Skylar making breakfast in my kitchen before turning to me with fire in her eyes. Hope Elizabeth, what in God's name is going on here? Mom, I started, but she was already advancing on Skylar. Who exactly are you, and why are you in my daughter's kitchen? Skylar's spatula clattered against the stove. I'm a friend of Melvin's. A friend? My mother's voice could have frozen hell. The kind of friend who wears my daughter's wedding anniversary necklace? I looked closer. Sure enough, Skylar was wearing the diamond pendant Melvin had given me for our 10th anniversary. The sight made my blood boil, but I kept my face neutral. Mom, let's talk outside. On the back patio, my mother gripped her handbag like she was considering using it as a weapon. Tell me everything. Now. So I did. The surgery, the betrayal, the financial fraud, everything except my plan for revenge. But my mother, sharp as ever, saw right through me. You're planning something, she said. I know that look. It's the same one you had before you took down that corrupt CEO at your old firm. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed with a text from Andy. Meeting in 20. Urgent news about Alan. Mom, I'm coming with you. Her tone left no room for argument. And on the way, you're going to tell me what you're really up to. At Andy's office, Faith was already waiting with a thick folder of documents. Her eyes widened when she saw my mother. Mrs. Reynolds, I didn't expect— Angela, please. My mother interrupted. Now, what's this about Melvin's business partner? Andy cleared his throat. Actually, this might be helpful. Mrs. Reynolds, Angela, do you remember a company called Pacific Ridge Investments from about 20 years ago? My mother's face went pale. How do you know that name? It came up in our investigation of Melvin and Alan's finances. They seem to be using the same shell company structure. That's impossible, my mother whispered. Pacific Ridge was shut down after... She stopped, looking at me with horror. After what, Mom? She sank into a chair. After your father's death. He was investigating them. Said something wasn't right with their books. The night of the accident, he was meeting with someone about it. The room went silent. My father's car accident had always been attributed to bad weather and worse luck. But now... Andy, I said, my voice shaking. What exactly did you find? He spread out several documents. Pacific Ridge was officially dissolved in 2003, but the structure was maintained. New name, same players. And guess who was a junior accountant there at the time? Melvin, Faith breathed. He never told me he worked there, I said. He said his first job was at... He lied, my mother cut in, because he knew I would recognize the name. Your father. She took a deep breath. The night he died, he said he was meeting with a young accountant who wanted to blow the whistle. The implications hit me like a physical blow. Are you saying Melvin was involved in... We can't prove anything about the accident, Andy said quickly. But we can prove he was there, that he knew your father, and that he's been running the same scheme for 20 years. Faith reached for my hand. Hope. Show me everything, I demanded. Every document, every connection. As Andy and Faith laid out the evidence, my mother sat quietly, tears rolling down her cheeks. 20 years of believing my father's death was an accident, and all this time... I want him destroyed, I said finally. Not just divorced, not just exposed. Destroyed. Hope. My mother touched my arm. Revenge won't bring your father back. This isn't just revenge anymore, Mom. This is about justice. For Dad, for us, for everyone they've hurt. I turned to Andy. How soon can we move? Give me 2 days to compile everything. But Hope, if we do this, there's no going back. This goes beyond fraud charges. This could implicate people in your father's death. Good. I stood up, my decision made. Let's give them exactly what they deserve. Back home, Skylar was still in my kitchen, still wearing my necklace. She smiled nervously at my mother. I made lunch if you'd like. My mother walked past her without a word, heading upstairs. I stayed behind, looking at the woman who had unknowingly inserted herself into a decades-old web of lies and murder. That necklace looks lovely on you, I said softly. Enjoy it while you can. Everything's about to change. The confusion on her face would have been comical if the situation weren't so tragic. She had no idea she was just a pawn in a game that started long before she met Melvin. A game that was finally coming to an end. The cracks in Melvin's carefully constructed world started showing at breakfast. His hands shook as he read something on his phone, coffee sloshing over the rim of his cup. Everything okay, honey? I asked, watching him from behind my own phone where I was recording everything. Fine, he snapped. Just business. Skylar reached for his phone. Let me see. He yanked it away. Don't touch my phone. The doorbell rang before she could respond. Alan stood on our doorstep, looking like he hadn't slept in days. We need to talk, he said to Melvin. Privately. I stood up. Use the study. I was just leaving anyway. But instead of leaving, I went to the guest room where Faith had helped me install a small recording device the day before. Through my earphones, I could hear everything. They're asking questions about Pacific Ridge. Alan's voice crackled through. About what happened in '03. That's impossible. We buried that years ago. Well, someone's digging, and they're asking about Thomas. My father's name. My hands clenched into fists. It was an accident, Melvin insisted. Everyone knew that. Was it? Alan's voice rose. Because I've spent 20 years wondering if you actually... Shut up. Something slammed. Probably Melvin's fist on the desk. No one can prove anything. Someone's already proving it. The SEC called this morning. They're auditing everything, Melvin. Everything. A pause, then Melvin spoke quietly. We need to clean house. All the records, all the accounts. It's too late. They've frozen everything. My phone buzzed. A text from Andy. SEC raid happening now at their office. Stay clear. I smiled, remembering how eager the SEC investigators had been when we brought them the evidence. 20 years of fraud tends to get their attention. The study door burst open. I quickly ducked into the bathroom as Alan stormed past, face red with fury. This isn't over, Melvin. I waited until he left before heading downstairs. Skylar was pacing in the kitchen. What's happening? She demanded. Why was Alan so angry? Maybe you should ask Melvin, I suggested. Or better yet, ask him about Pacific Ridge investments. Her eyes narrowed. What's Pacific Ridge? The company where my father caught them cooking the books 20 years ago, right before his convenient accident. The color drained from her face. What are you talking about? Ask Melvin. I'm sure he'll tell you all about it, or... I pulled out a business card. You could talk to the SEC investigators. They're very interested in hearing from anyone involved. She snatched the card. You're lying. Melvin would never... $5 million. I cut in. That's how much they embezzled through Pacific Ridge before my father caught them. Want to guess how much they've taken since then? The front door slammed again. Melvin rushing out to his car. Skylar ran after him, calling his name, but he drove away without looking back. My phone buzzed again. This time it was Faith. Turn on the news, now. I flipped on the kitchen TV just as Skylar came back inside. The headline scrolled across the bottom. Major financial fraud uncovered. Local business partners under investigation. Oh my God, Skylar whispered. The investigation centers around a decades-old cold case. The reporter was saying. Sources say new evidence has emerged linking the death of prominent accountant Thomas Reynolds to an ongoing fraud scheme. Skylar turned to me, realization dawning. Reynolds, that's my father. Yes. I watched her face as everything clicked into place. Still think Melvin's your ticket to a comfortable life? I didn't know, she said weakly, about any of this. No, you didn't. You were just the convenient distraction while they tried to hide their tracks. But here's the thing about tracks, Skylar. They always lead somewhere. My phone buzzed one more time. Andy. Alan's asking to make a deal. Says he'll tell everything. You should pack, I told Skylar. The FBI will be here soon with search warrants. And I'd leave that necklace. It's evidence now. She reached up to touch the diamond pendant, tears in her eyes. What have I gotten myself into? The wrong side of history, I said, turning back to the TV where Melvin's company logo was being splashed across the screen. But don't worry, you're just a footnote in this story. As she ran upstairs to pack, I sent a group text to Faith, Andy, and my mother. It's happening. Alan's cracking, Melvin's running. Time for phase 2. Faith responded instantly. Ready when you are. Let's finish this. I touched my father's picture on the wall, remembering his smile, his laugh, his unwavering sense of justice. We're almost there, Dad, I whispered. Almost there. The FBI agents were thorough, I'll give them that. They went through every room, every drawer, every file in our house. I sat in the living room with Agent Sarah, watching as they cataloged evidence. Mrs. Ward, she said, we found something interesting in the basement safe. She handed me a manila envelope. Inside were photos. Old ones from before I met Melvin. One showed him with my father, both younger, both smiling at some office party. The date stamp read 3 days before my father's death. He knew, I whispered. He knew exactly who I was when he met me. Agent Sarah leaned forward. That's not all we found. A second envelope contained documents, insurance policies, death benefits, all with my father's name. and behind them, handwritten notes detailing exactly how to make a car accident look natural. My phone rang. Andy. Hope? Alan's talking. He's telling them everything. How bad? Bad. He says Melvin planned it all. Your father was going to expose them, so Melvin... He paused. He tampered with the brakes. The room spun. Agent Sarah steadied me with a hand on my shoulder. We need you to come down to the station, she said gently. There are some questions. The front door burst open. Melvin stood there, wild-eyed and desperate. Hope. He stumbled forward. Whatever they're saying, it's lies. Alan's trying to frame me. 2 agents moved to block him, but I held up my hand. Let him speak. I want to hear this. Baby, please. He tried to approach, but Agent Sarah stepped between us. I loved your father. He was my mentor. I would never... Funny, I said, holding up the photos. You never mentioned knowing him. Not once in 15 years of marriage. His face went pale. Where did you get those? The same place I got these. I spread out the handwritten notes. Your handwriting hasn't changed much in 20 years, has it? Those aren't... I can explain. Explain what? My voice rose. How you murdered my father? How you married me to keep an eye on his family? How you've been running the same scam he died trying to expose? I did it for us, he shouted. Everything I did was to give us a better life. Mr. Ward, Agent Sarah cut in. I'm placing you under arrest. As they read him his rights, my phone buzzed with texts. Faith. Just watch them arrest Alan at his office. Mom. The FBI found more files at their storage unit. It's over. Andy. Divorce papers are ready. Say the word. Melvin struggled against the handcuffs. Hope, please, you can't do this to me. I walked over to him, calm and steady. I didn't do this to you, Melvin. You did this to yourself. 20 years ago, when you chose money over my father's life. 15 years ago, when you married me to cover your tracks. And 2 weeks ago, when you moved your mistress into our home, thinking I was too weak to fight back. You planned this? He realized, horror dawning on his face. All of it. Justice comes in many forms, I said, thinking of my father. Sometimes it takes 20 years and a daughter's determination. As they led him away, Skylar appeared at the top of the stairs, suitcase in hand. Is it true? She asked. Did he really kill your father? Ask him yourself. I'm sure the FBI will let you visit him in prison. She hurried past the agents, pausing at the door. I really didn't know. I believe you, I said. That's why I made sure the SEC knows you were just another victim of his manipulation. You should be clear of any charges. Tears filled her eyes. Thank you. After everyone left, Faith and my mother arrived. The house felt empty, cleaned out by the FBI, but somehow lighter. So, Faith said, pulling out a bottle of wine, how does it feel to take down a 20-year-old criminal enterprise? Like justice, my mother answered for me, touching my father's picture. Pure justice. Andy called again. Hope, you need to see this. Alan's confession. He's naming names. Judges, politicians, everyone who helped cover it up. This is bigger than we thought. Good, I said, thinking of all the families who lost money to their schemes. Let it all come out. The divorce papers, he continued. Should I file them now? I looked around at my empty house, finally free of lies and secrets. Yes, it's time. Faith raised her wine glass. To Hope, the woman who brought down an empire. No, my mother corrected, raising her own glass. To Thomas, who raised a daughter strong enough to finish what he started. I thought of Melvin in handcuffs, of Alan's confession, of 20 years of lies finally exposed to the light. To justice, I said. However long it takes. The sun was setting outside, painting the sky the same orange it had been the day my father died. But this time the color didn't bring pain. It brought peace. The courtroom was packed for Melvin's arraignment. I sat between Faith and my mother in the front row, watching as they led him in wearing an orange jumpsuit, a far cry from his usual designer suits. "All rise," the bailiff called. As the charges were read, first-degree murder, conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, Melvin kept looking back at me, his eyes pleading. I stared straight ahead. "How does the defendant plead?" the judge asked. "Not guilty, Your Honor," Melvin's lawyer responded. A commotion erupted at the courtroom doors. Alan was being led in by his own set of guards, his lawyer rushing behind him. "Your Honor," Alan's lawyer called out, "my client wishes to change his plea agreement. He has additional information about the murder of Thomas Reynolds." Melvin jumped up. "You lying bastard." "Order!" The judge slammed her gavel. "Mr. Ward, control yourself or you'll be removed." Alan was brought to the front. He looked directly at me as he spoke. 20 years ago, Melvin Ward orchestrated the death of Thomas Reynolds. I helped cover it up. And I have proof. "Objection," Melvin's lawyer shouted. "Save it for trial," the judge said. "Mr. Peters, you understand that by making this statement, you're admitting to conspiracy after the fact?" "Yes, Your Honor." Alan pulled out a USB drive. "This contains everything. Security footage from that night, original documents, recordings of conversations over the years. I kept it all as insurance." Melvin lunged at him, breaking free from his guards. "I'll kill you." The courtroom erupted in chaos. Guards tackled Melvin as he reached for Alan's throat. My mother gripped my hand as Faith filmed everything on her phone. "Take them both into custody," the judge ordered, "and get that evidence to the DA immediately." Outside the courtroom, reporters swarmed us. Andy appeared, creating a path through the crowd. "Hope, is it true your husband killed your father? Did you know when you married him? Was this a revenge plot all along?" Andy guided us to a private room. "The DA wants to talk to you. With Alan's evidence and Melvin's outburst in court, they're pushing for maximum sentences." "Good," my mother said firmly. "Let them rot." My phone buzzed. A text from Skylar. "Saw the news. Meeting with FBI tomorrow. We'll tell them everything I know about the offshore accounts." "Smart girl," Faith commented, reading over my shoulder. "Finally picked the right side." The DA entered, carrying a thick folder. "Mrs. Ward, we've reviewed the new evidence. The security footage clearly shows Melvin tampering with your father's car. With this and Alan's testimony, he'll never get out," Andy finished. "Neither of them will." "There's more," the DA continued. "The financial records implicate several prominent figures. Judges, politicians, business leaders. This could bring down half the city's elite." "Do it," I said. "Every last one of them." Later that evening, we gathered at my mother's house. The news was playing footage from the courtroom, showing Melvin's attack on Alan on repeat. "Look at this," Faith said, scrolling through her phone. "Your story's gone viral. Justice for Thomas is trending." "People love a good revenge story," Andy commented, pouring more wine. "Especially when the bad guys actually get what they deserve." My mother brought out an old photo album. "I found this today. Your father's last family photo. The picture showed all three of us at a park, laughing at something off camera. I was 12, gap-toothed and happy, not knowing it would be our last photo together." "He'd be proud," my mother said softly. "Not just of the justice, but of the woman you've become." A breaking news alert flashed on TV. Breaking: additional arrests made in Reynolds' murder case. Former Judge Marcus and Police Commissioner Stevens taken into custody. "The dominoes are falling," Andy said. "Once Alan started talking, everyone's rushing to make deals." Faith raised her glass. "To the power of karma." "And patience," my mother added. "And evidence," Andy chimed in with a smirk. I thought about Melvin in his cell, probably realizing his entire world was crumbling. About Alan spilling decades of secrets. About all the corrupt power players watching their empires collapse. My phone buzzed one last time. A text from Agent Sarah. "Found the missing millions. Every penny accounted for. Ready to discuss restitution tomorrow?" I showed the message to Andy, who grinned. "Perfect timing. The divorce hearing is tomorrow, too." "So what's next?" Faith asked. I looked at my father's photo, then at the TV showing Melvin's meltdown in court, and finally at the family surrounding me. The real family who'd helped bring justice after 20 years. Next, I said, we make sure everyone who helped cover up my father's murder faces consequences. Then we use the restitution money to set up a foundation in his name, helping expose corporate fraud and protecting whistleblowers. He would have loved that, my mother whispered. Outside, reporters were still camped on the lawn, waiting for statements. But in here, surrounded by truth and justice at last, I finally felt at peace. The gavel struck with finality as the judge delivered Melvin's sentence. Life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. I sat perfectly still, watching my ex-husband's shoulders slump as the reality hit him. Alan had already received his 20-year sentence last week for his role as an accessory. "Hope!" Melvin called out as they led him away. "Please." I stood up, finally ready to speak the words I'd held back for months. "My father begged too, didn't he? Right before you killed him?" His face crumpled. For the first time, I saw real remorse in his eyes. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry." "Save it for your prison counselor." Outside the courthouse, Faith handed me a tablet showing the morning's headlines. Corporate fraud ring dismantled, 32 prominent figures indicted. Below that, Thomas Reynolds Foundation launches whistleblower protection program. "The first case just came in," Faith said. "Another accounting firm, similar pattern of fraud." "Send it to Andy," I replied. "And call Agent Sarah. She'll want to—" "Hope!" A familiar voice cut through the crowd. Skylar pushed through the reporters, clutching a folder. "I found something else. In one of Melvin's old storage units." She handed me the folder with shaking hands. Inside were letters, dozens of them, all written by my father in the weeks before his death. Letters documenting everything he'd discovered, addressed to the SEC but never sent. "He was going to expose everything," I said softly. "Not just the fraud, but the whole network. There's more." Skylar pulled out a final letter, this one addressed to me. "He wrote this the day he died." My mother appeared at my side as I opened it. The paper was aged, but his handwriting was clear. "My dearest Hope, if you're reading this, something has gone wrong. I've discovered things that powerful people want to keep hidden. But remember what I always told you. Truth finds a way. Stay strong, stay honest, and never let anyone make you feel powerless. All my love, Dad." "We did it, Dad," I whispered. "We found the way." Andy approached with more news. The restitution hearing just ended. The judge approved everything. Full recovery of all stolen funds plus damages. The foundation is fully funded. "And Melvin's offshore accounts?" Faith asked. "Seized. Every penny going to the victims." My mother squeezed my hand. Thomas would have loved this part best. The money going back to the people they stole from. A young reporter pushed forward. "Mrs. Ward, how does it feel to see justice served after 20 years? I thought about my answer carefully. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about restoration, about making things right. "And what about the foundation?" Another called out. "Why focus on protecting whistleblowers?" "Because my father died trying to tell the truth. The foundation ensures no one else has to make that choice." Back at my mother's house, where it all started, Faith was setting up for the foundation's first board meeting. Skylar had agreed to testify against the remaining defendants in exchange for immunity and a position helping other whistleblowers come forward. "The first case looks solid," Andy said, reviewing files. "Similar pattern to what your father found. Hidden accounts, falsified records. But this time," Faith added, "they won't get away with it." Agent Sarah arrived with fresh evidence from the ongoing investigation. 3 more arrests this morning. The whole corrupt network is falling apart. I walked to my father's photo, now hanging prominently in the foundation's conference room. Next to it was a plaque with his favorite quote, "Truth finds a way." "You know what's ironic?" my mother said, joining me. "Melvin thought marrying you would protect his secrets. Instead, he gave you the perfect position to expose them all. Karma works in mysterious ways," Faith quipped. My phone buzzed. Another whistleblower coming forward, inspired by our story. Another chance to protect someone brave enough to speak up. Ready for the next case? Andy asked. I looked around the room at my unlikely team. Faith with her unwavering loyalty. Andy with his legal brilliance. Skylar with her insider knowledge. Agent Sarah with her dedication to justice. And my mother with her unshakable strength. You know what Dad would say. I smiled. Truth finds a way. Through us, my mother added. Through us, everyone echoed. Outside, the sun was setting on one chapter of our lives, but I wasn't sad. We had transformed a 20-year-old tragedy into a force for good, a way to protect others from suffering the same fate. The Foundation's phone rang again, another whistle ready to blow, another truth ready to find its way into the light. I picked up the receiver, ready to help write the next chapter of justice. Thomas Reynolds Foundation, I answered. How can we help you tell your truth?
The intervention blindsided me on a regular Tuesday morning. I was reviewing quarterly reports in my office when they filed in like a funeral procession. My sister Francesca leading the charge, followed by our mother, my stepfather Tony, and Mitchell, our CEO. My name is Valentina, and that was the day my sister stole my life. Val, we need to talk, Francesca said, her voice dripping with rehearsed concern. She perched herself on the edge of my desk while the others formed a semicircle around me. We're worried about you. I laughed, thinking it was some kind of joke. Worried? About what? Mom stepped forward, tears already forming in her eyes. Sweetheart, we've noticed changes in your behavior. The late nights, the erratic decisions, the mood swings. I've been working overtime on the Miller account, I said, my stomach tightening. You know that, Francesca. You're on the same project. Found these in your desk drawer, Francesca announced, producing an orange prescription bottle I'd never seen before. Oxycodone, Val? Really? My blood ran cold. That's not mine. I've never seen that before in my life. Classic denial, Tony muttered, shaking his head. Just like my brother before we lost him. I'm not in denial. Francesca, tell them. You know I don't take drugs. I stood up, my chair rolling back against the wall. This is insane. Mitchell cleared his throat. The board has agreed to a temporary leave of absence while you seek treatment. We've already arranged everything with Pine Grove Recovery Center. The board? When was this discussed? I own 30% of this company. My voice was rising, which I knew made me sound exactly like someone having a breakdown. Francesca, what did you do? I'm trying to save your life, she said, reaching for my hand. I yanked it away. The power of attorney paperwork is already filed. I'll manage your shares until you're better. Power of attorney? The room started spinning. Mom, you can't believe this. Please. Mom was sobbing now. We just want our Val back. 2 security guards appeared in the doorway. My doorway to my office in my company. This is a setup, I said, my voice shaking. Francesca's lying. Search my office, search my house, drug test me right now. I'll prove it. The car's waiting downstairs, Francesca said softly. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I looked at each face in turn. Mom's tear-stained desperation, Tony's righteous judgment, Mitchell's professional detachment, and Francesca's perfect mask of concern. The prescription bottle sat on my desk like a smoking gun. You'll regret this, I said, locking eyes with my sister. I swear to God, Francesca, you'll regret this day for the rest of your life. See? Francesca turned to the others. Paranoid aggression, classic symptom. The security guard stepped forward. One reached for my arm. Don't touch me, I snapped. I can walk myself out. I grabbed my purse, leaving everything else behind. My family watched in silence as I walked past them, head held high despite the humiliation burning through my chest. Employees peeked over their cubicle walls, pretending not to stare as I was escorted to the elevator. In the parking garage, a black SUV waited with Pine Grove Recovery Center printed on the side. The driver opened the back door. Ms. Perry, I'm David from Pine Grove. We'll take good care of you. I paused before getting in, turning to look at Francesca, who had followed us down. You planted those pills, didn't you? She stepped closer, dropping her voice. Prove it, little sister. Oh, wait, you'll be too busy in rehab. Why? I whispered. We're family. Family? She smiled, and for a moment, I saw the real Francesca. Family is business, Val, and business is about winning. I got into the SUV, my mind already racing. Francesca thought she'd won, thought she'd broken me, but she'd made a crucial mistake. She'd left me alive, with nothing left to lose. As we pulled away from the office building, I made myself a promise. This wasn't the end of my story. It was just the beginning. I'd play the good little addict, jump through their hoops, make them all believe I was properly chastised and reformed. And then, when they least expected it, I'd take back everything that was mine and make sure Francesca lost everything that was hers. The SUV turned onto the highway, carrying me toward Pine Grove, toward exile, toward revenge. Game on, sister. Game on. Pine Grove wasn't what I expected. Instead of the prison-like facility I'd imagined, I found myself in what looked like an upscale resort, complete with meditation gardens and a state-of-the-art gym. My room even had a view of the mountains. It was almost nice enough to make me forget I was here against my will. Almost. How are you settling in? Dr. Sarah, my assigned therapist, asked during our first session. She had kind eyes and a no-nonsense attitude I found myself respecting despite my situation. Wonderfully, I replied, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Love what you've done with the place. Very 5-star imprisonment. She didn't take the bait. Your intake forms say you're here for oxycodone dependency, but your drug tests came back negative. Want to talk about that? Finally, someone with a brain. I leaned forward. I was set up. My sister planted those pills to take control of my shares in our family business. That's quite an accusation. It's quite a truth. I stood up and paced the room. But you probably think I'm in denial, right? That's what they all say? What I think doesn't matter, she said, watching me carefully. What matters is how you use your time here. I stopped pacing. What do you mean? You're here for 90 days, Valentina. That's a fact. Whether you were set up or not, you have 2 choices. Waste this time being angry or use it to your advantage. Her words hit home. She was right. I was stuck here regardless. Might as well make it count. What would you suggest? I asked, sitting back down. We offer business courses through our partnership with local colleges. Legal workshops, too. Many of our guests find them enlightening. I caught her subtle smile and understood. She believed me. The next few weeks passed in a blur of activity. I threw myself into every course available, from corporate law to financial management. During group therapy, I played the role of the recovering addict perfectly, sharing manufactured stories of my struggle while secretly taking notes on manipulation techniques from our counselors. One morning, while I was studying in the library, Kendra, one of the staff members I'd grown close to, dropped an envelope on my table. This came for you, she whispered. I didn't log it in the system. Inside was a letter from Jasper, my old college friend, who'd gone on to become a successful tech entrepreneur. We hadn't spoken in years. Val, it read, news travels fast. I know you're not an addict. You were too straight edge in college to even take aspirin. I've been watching your sister's moves. She's making mistakes, big ones. Call me when you're out. We should talk. Jay. Good news? Kendra asked, noticing my expression. Could be. I studied her face. Why are you helping me? She glanced around before sitting down. My brother lost everything in a similar setup. His business partner framed him for embezzlement. By the time he proved his innocence, the company was gone. He never recovered. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. Be smart. She pulled out her phone, showing me a news article about my company. Your sister's been busy. 3 board members resigned last week. My heart raced. She's consolidating power. Okay, exactly. But look at the stock prices. She zoomed in on a graph. They're dropping. The market doesn't trust her leadership. I grabbed a notebook and started writing. I need you to teach me everything you know about the rehab's computer system. Every weakness, every back door. Already done. She slid a USB drive across the table. Network passwords, scheduling software, everything. Just make her pay, okay? Count on it. I tucked the drive into my bra. But first, I need to make a few calls. Know any staff phones that aren't monitored? She grinned. Night supervisor's office. I have keys. She's out sick all week. That night, I made my first call to Jasper. His voice was exactly as I remembered. Confident, sharp, ready for action. Took you long enough, he said. Ready to talk strategy? I looked out my window at the mountains, thinking of Francesca sitting in my office, sleeping in her penthouse, believing she'd won. More than ready, I replied. But I need to know everything. Every move she's made, every deal she's planning. And then I need your help to destroy her. That's my girl, he laughed. Class starts tomorrow. Hope you're taking notes. I hung up feeling more alive than I had in weeks. Francesca thought she'd sentenced me to prison, but she'd actually given me something precious. Time. Time to learn, to plan, to prepare. And I was going to use every second of it. She's trying to sell your shares, Jasper's voice crackled through the phone. I was back in the night supervisor's office, having my weekly midnight strategy session. But there's a problem. She needs board approval, which she doesn't have, I said, scrolling through the documents Kendra had helped me access. That's why the board members resigned. She tried to force their hands. Exactly. But here's where it gets interesting. I heard keyboard clicks in the background. She's been meeting with some shady investment groups. One of them caught my attention, Blue Harbor Capital. Never heard of them. Because they didn't exist 6 months ago. It's a shell company, Val. And guess who's connected to it? My breath caught. Mitchell. Bingo. Your CEO is helping your sister steal your company right out from under you. I scribbled notes furiously. Can you get me proof? Already did. Check your email. Kendra set you up with a secure account, right? I opened the laptop Kendra had smuggled in and clicked through the evidence. Bank transfers, shell companies, offshore accounts. It was all there. Holy shit, Jasper. This is gold. That's not all, he said. Your mother's been asking questions. Francesca's story isn't holding up, and people are starting to notice you're not exactly acting like an addict in rehab. A knock at the door made me jump. Kendra slipped in, looking worried. Someone's coming, she whispered. Gotta go, I told Jasper. Same time next week? Wait, one more thing. My sister Sabrina? She's on your board. She wants to meet. I ended the call just as footsteps echoed down the hall. Kendra and I quickly shut down the computer and slipped out the back door, barely making it around the corner, before Dr. Sarah walked past. Back in my room, Kendra handed me a newspaper. Page 6, Business Section. The headline made my blood boil. Perry Industries announces restructuring. Francesca Perry to assume full control. She's making her move, I said. We need to speed things up. Already on it. Kendra pulled out her phone. I got you a meeting with Sabrina tomorrow during your therapy session. Dr. Sarah's covering for you. I raised an eyebrow. Dr. Sarah's in on this? Let's just say she's seen enough rich families destroy each other to know which side to back. The next day, Sabrina met me in Dr. Sarah's office. She was sharply dressed and straight to the point. Your sister's a nightmare, she said, sitting down. She's threatening board members, manipulating accounts, and now this Blue Harbor deal, it stinks. I need allies on the board, I said. People who'll block the share transfer when I make my move. You'll have them. Half the board already regrets believing her addiction story. But Val... She leaned forward. We need to talk about your mother. My chest tightened. What about her? She came to my office yesterday, asking about the intervention. Said some things weren't adding up. Francesca's getting sloppy, making mistakes. Your mother found prescription records that prove those pills weren't yours. Hope flared in my chest, but I squashed it down. It doesn't matter, the damage is done. It matters because Francesca's panicking. She's pushing this Blue Harbor deal through too fast, making enemies. One wrong move and everything could collapse. I stood up and walked to the window, watching patients stroll through the garden below. Then let's give her the wrong move. Sabrina, how would you like to help me destroy my sister? She smiled. I thought you'd never ask. Over the next hour, we crafted a plan. Sabrina would stall the Blue Harbor deal while I set up a network of proxy buyers. Meanwhile, Jasper would start leaking strategic information to the board about Francesca's dealings. One condition, Sabrina said as she prepared to leave. When this is over, you have to talk to your mother. Really talk to her. Deal. I walked her to the door. And Sabrina, thank you. Don't thank me yet. The hard part's still coming. After she left, I sat in Dr. Sarah's office, looking at the newspaper again. Francesca's photo smiled up at me, confident and cruel. She thought she was untouchable, thought she had all the power. But power isn't just about position or money. It's about information, allies, and patience. I had spent my time in rehab building all three, while she spent hers making enemies and mistakes. I picked up my phone and texted Kendra. It's time. Start phase 2. Her reply came instantly. Ready when you are, boss. The game was changing. Francesca thought she was the hunter, but she was about to become the prey. And this time, I had proof, allies, and absolutely nothing left to lose. Let the real games begin. Your sister's coming to visit today, Dr. Sarah announced during our morning session. 2 months had passed since my admission, and phase 2 was in full swing. I kept my face neutral. Really? How interesting. Remember your training, she said, dropping her therapist persona. Don't let her see anything but what she expects to see. An hour later, I sat in the visitor's room, wearing the baggiest clothes I could find, my hair deliberately messy. When Francesca walked in, perfectly coiffed in her designer suit, I had to fight back a smile. She'd walked right into my trap. Val, she said, air-kissing my cheek. You look better. Thanks, I mumbled, keeping my eyes down. The programs here really help. She sat across from me, setting her expensive handbag on the floor. I brought some papers for you to sign. Just routine stuff for the company. What kind of papers? I asked, making my voice small and uncertain. Nothing major. Just transferring some shares to help with cash flow. She slid the documents across the table. The doctors say you're doing well. Maybe we can talk about you coming home soon. I pretended to read the papers while actually studying her face. There was tension around her eyes, a slight tremor in her hands. Something was wrong in her perfect little world. Is everything okay at the office? I asked innocently. Of course, she said too quickly. Why wouldn't it be? Just asking. Mom mentioned something about board meetings being tense lately. Francesca's eye twitched. You've been talking to Mom? She visits sometimes, when you're busy. The pen creaked in Francesca's grip. Listen, Val, I know this has been hard, but everything I've done has been for your own good, for the family. I looked up, letting her see just a glimpse of the old me. Has it? Before she could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from Jasper. Blue Harbor deal falling apart, Mitchell cracking under pressure. Move now. I returned to my submissive pose. I'm sorry, I need time to read these properly. The doctors say I shouldn't make big decisions without consulting my therapy team. But, Ms. Perry? Kendra appeared at the door. Your sister's group therapy session starts in 5 minutes. Francesca stood, smoothing her skirt. Keep the papers. Think about what I said. After she left, Kendra locked the door and pulled out her tablet. Got it all on camera, the whole conversation, plus her trying to make you sign documents without proper legal representation while under medical care. Perfect. I pulled out my phone. Jasper, you watching? Every second. His voice came through the speaker. She's desperate, Val. The Blue Harbor deal is her last shot at controlling the company. Without it, she loses everything. Time to push her over the edge. I turned to Kendra. Send the video to our friends at the board. Let them see how their acting CEO treats her sick sister. Already done, Kendra grinned. But that's not all. Mitchell called Sabrina this morning. He wants to meet. He's breaking ranks, Jasper said. Francesca must have promised him something she can't deliver. I stood up, energy coursing through me. Set up the meeting, and Jasper. Release those offshore account records we found. Let's give Mitchell something to really worry about. You sure? He asked. Once we do this, there's no going back. Francesca crossed the point of no return the day she set me up. I walked to the window, watching her expensive car pull away. She wants to play hardball? Let's play. Later that night, I met with Dr. Sarah in her office. The news was already spreading through the business world. Mysterious leaks about Perry Industries, questions about offshore accounts, rumors of board member revolts. Your sister called, Dr. Sarah said. She's demanding we restrict your phone privileges, says you're not ready for outside contact. I laughed. Let me guess, right after the board called an emergency meeting? You're playing a dangerous game, Valentina. No, I corrected her. I'm winning a dangerous game. There's a difference. My phone buzzed again. Another text from Jasper. Mitchell agreed to meet. Tomorrow night. You ready? I thought about Francesca's face today, the fear behind her confident mask. Thought about her sitting in my office, thinking she was invincible. That would change tomorrow. Ready? I texted back. I've been ready for 2 months. Time to show my sister what happens when you underestimate family. The pieces were all in place. Mitchell was cracking, the board was turning, and Francesca was about to learn a very expensive lesson about karma. Tomorrow couldn't come soon enough. Mitchell looked terrible. Dark circles under his eyes, suit wrinkled, hair unkempt. Not the polished CEO I remembered. He sat across from me in Dr. Sarah's office, fidgeting with his tie. You shouldn't be here, he said, glancing nervously at the door. If Francesca finds out, she's the least of your problems right now. I slid a folder across the desk. Care to explain these transfers? His hands shook as he opened it. Where did you get these? Does it matter? The SEC will have them by morning unless we make a deal. You don't understand, he whispered. She has dirt on all of us. Things that could ruin careers, destroy families. I leaned forward. Tell me everything. Over the next hour, Mitchell spilled his guts. Francesca hadn't just been manipulating the company. She'd been blackmailing board members, threatening families, and cooking books. The Blue Harbor deal was meant to cover her tracks before anyone caught on. And you helped her, I said, my voice hard. I didn't have a choice. He wiped sweat from his forehead. She found out about my gambling debts, said she'd help if I played along with her story about you. My phone buzzed. A text from Sabrina. Emergency board meeting called for tomorrow. F losing control, making threats. Here's what's going to happen, I told Mitchell. Tomorrow you're going to tell the board everything, every detail, every threat, every illegal move she made. She'll destroy me. No, she won't. I handed him another folder. Because I have proof that you were acting under duress. Play this right, and you might keep your career. Cross me, and you'll wish Francesca was your only problem. After Mitchell left, Kendra rushed in. Your mother's here. What? My heart jumped. She's not scheduled to visit until... Val? Mom stood in the doorway, looking older than I remembered. We need to talk. Kendra squeezed my shoulder and left us alone. Mom sat down, pulling something from her purse. A prescription bottle. I found these in Francesca's desk, she said. Same ones she claimed were yours. I had them tested. The fingerprints. Her voice broke. Oh God, Val, what did we do to you? Mom? No, let me finish. She wiped her eyes. I've been such a fool. Your sister, she's not who I thought she was. The things I've discovered. I know, I said softly. I know everything. You do? She looked up sharply. Of course you do. You've been planning something, haven't you? That's why Francesca's been so erratic lately. I studied her face, looking for any sign of deception. Whose side are you on, Mom? Yours, she said without hesitation. I should have been from the start. Tell me how to make this right. Before I could respond, my phone exploded with messages. Jasper, Sabrina, and Kendra all texting at once. Turn on the news now. Kendra burst back in with a tablet. The business news was running a breaking story. Perry Industries CEO, Francesca Perry, under investigation for securities fraud. It's happening, I breathed. She's cracking. Mom watched the news report, her face pale. What do we do? We? I asked. Yes, we. She grabbed my hand. I failed you once. I won't do it again. My phone rang. Jasper. Val, Francesca's on her way to Pine Grove. She knows. Good. I stood up, adrenaline coursing through me. Let her come. Val, Mom said, whatever you're planning, be careful. Your sister's dangerous when she's cornered. So am I replied, watching the news coverage. And unlike her, I've had 2 months to prepare for this moment. Kendra returned with Dr. Sarah. Security's been alerted. We're ready. Mom, I said, go home. What's about to happen? You don't want to be here for it. She stood, straightening her shoulders. No, I've hidden from the truth long enough. I'm staying. Outside, we heard tires screeching in the parking lot. Angry voices, security radio chatter. Places, everyone, I said, sitting behind Dr. Sarah's desk. Time for the final act. Footsteps pounded down the hallway. Mom sat beside me, Kendra and Dr. Sarah flanking the door. My phone buzzed one last time. Sabrina. Board members all notified. Everyone's watching. End this. The door burst open. Francesca stood there, designer suit disheveled, eyes wild with rage. You little bitch, she snarled. What have you done? I smiled, feeling calmer than I had in months. Hello, sister. Let's talk about those prescription bottles you planted, shall we? The door closed behind her, with a final sounding click. The endgame had begun. You have no idea what you're doing, Francesca spat, pacing Dr. Sarah's office like a caged animal. You're going to destroy everything. Everything you stole, you mean? I kept my voice steady, watching her unravel. Sit down, Francesca. We need to discuss the terms of your resignation. She laughed, high and brittle. Resignation? I own this company. No, Mom spoke up, her voice trembling but firm. You own nothing. The board is voting right now to freeze all your assets pending investigation. Francesca whirled on her. You're taking her side? After everything I've done for this family? Done for this family? I stood up, sliding a document across the desk. Like falsifying medical records? Bribing doctors? Blackmailing board members? You can't prove any of that. Actually, Dr. Sarah stepped forward, I can. I've documented everything since Valentina's admission, including your attempts to keep her medicated against her will. Francesca's face went white. You're bluffing. Check your phone, I said. The SEC announcement should be hitting any minute now. On cue, her phone buzzed. She read the screen, her hands shaking. This is impossible. I covered everything. Except Mitchell, I said. He's singing like a canary right now. Turns out, threatening someone's family makes them hold quite a grudge. Mitchell? She sank into a chair. He wouldn't dare. He already has. Kendra handed me her tablet, showing a live stream of Mitchell talking to federal agents. And he's not alone. The whole house of cards is falling, sister dear. Francesca lunged for her phone, frantically dialing. James? James. Initiate the Blue Harbor transfer now. I don't care about the board. Just do it. He can't, I said calmly. Blue Harbor doesn't exist anymore. Just a shell company that mysteriously dissolved an hour ago, along with all your offshore accounts. You bitch! She hurled her phone at me. I ducked, and it shattered against the wall. You think you're so clever? I still have enough dirt to bury everyone in this room. No, you don't. Mom pulled out a USB drive. Because I found your safe. All your files, all your blackmail material, it's gone. I gave everything to the authorities this morning. Francesca stared at Mom, betrayal written across her face. You did what? I chose truth over fear, Mom said softly. Something you never understood. My phone buzzed. Jasper. Board vote complete. 11-0 against Francesca. You're back in. It's over, I told Francesca. You've lost everything, but I'm willing to make you a deal. A deal? She laughed desperately. What could you possibly offer me now? A choice. Option 1. Face criminal charges for fraud, embezzlement, and corporate espionage. Option 2. Resign quietly, return everything you stole, and take a position in our Tokyo office, far away from any real power. You're insane if you think. Option 2 includes keeping your trust fund, I interrupted. Option 1 includes a prison jumpsuit. Choose wisely. The fight drained from her face as reality set in. Outside, we could hear sirens approaching. Those would be the federal agents, Dr. Sarah said. They'll want to ask you some questions about those prescription bottles. Francesca's shoulders slumped. Tokyo? Tokyo, I confirmed. Sign the papers now, and you can be on a plane before they reach the door. She grabbed the resignation documents, signing without reading them. As soon as she finished, Kendra whisked them away. The car's waiting at the back entrance, she said. Your passport and plane ticket are inside. Francesca stood, straightening her jacket one last time. You'll regret this, Val. Someday, when you least expect it. No, I cut her off. I won't. Because unlike you, I learn from my mistakes. Try anything, ever, and those federal agents will mysteriously receive an anonymous tip about where to find the rest of your files. She stared at me for a long moment, finally seeing me clearly. Not as her little sister, but as the woman who'd outplayed her at her own game. Goodbye, Francesca, Mom said. I hope you find peace in Tokyo. Without another word, Francesca left. We watched through the window as she climbed into the waiting car and disappeared into the night. It's really over, Mom asked. Almost. I checked my phone. The board wants to meet tomorrow, time to rebuild what she destroyed. Val, Dr. Sarah said, are you ready for that? You've been through a lot. I looked around the room at my allies, my real family. I'm ready, but first I need a drink. A real one, not whatever they serve in rehab. I know just the place, Kendra grinned. Let's celebrate taking down the queen bee. As we left Pine Grove behind, I felt lighter than I had in months. Francesca had tried to break me, but instead she'd made me stronger. Now it was time to show the world what I could do with that strength. Tokyo was far enough away. The company was mine again. And this time, I knew exactly who to trust. Walking into the boardroom felt like coming home. 3 months after leaving Pine Grove, I stood at the head of the table, looking at the faces of our board members, some nervous, some relieved, all waiting to see what would happen next. Before we begin, I said, setting down my briefcase, I want to thank everyone for their patience during this transition period. Mitchell shifted uncomfortably in his seat. He'd kept his job, barely, after turning state's evidence against Francesca. The federal investigation was ongoing, but our company's cooperation had earned us some goodwill. The quarterly numbers are in, Sabrina announced, distributing folders. We're up 12% since the leadership change. Speaking of change, I clicked through to the first slide of my presentation. Let's talk about the future. The door opened, and Jasper walked in. Several board members straightened in their seats. His reputation preceded him. Ladies and gentlemen, I gestured to Jasper, meet our new Chief Strategy Officer. Ms. Perry, one of the older board members spoke up. While we appreciate your return, some of us have concerns about such dramatic changes so soon. Understandable, I replied, which is why I've brought proof of concept. I nodded to Jasper, who distributed more folders. Open them. The room fell silent as they read. Then the whispers started. This is impossible, someone muttered. These numbers, another gasped. Not impossible, Jasper said, taking his place beside me. Just smart business. While certain people were busy playing power games, Valentina and I were developing partnerships with 3 major tech firms. They're ready to sign as soon as we give the word. Which brings us to today's vote, I continued. We can either continue as we are, stable but stagnant, or we can embrace change and triple our market share by year's end. The boardroom doors opened again. This time, Mom walked in, followed by Tony. My stepfather looked uncomfortable in his suit, but his presence sent a clear message. The family was united again. "The floor is open for questions," I said, sitting down. For the next 2 hours, we fielded every concern, addressed every doubt. When the final vote came in, unanimous in favor of my plan, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. "One more thing," I said as the meeting wrapped up. "Mitchell." He looked up, startled. "Yes?" "Clear out your office by 5. Your resignation letter is already drafted." But you said if I cooperated." "Saw it. I said you'd keep your career," I corrected him. "Just not here. Jasper's arranged a position for you at a startup in Seattle. Consider it a fresh start." After everyone filed out, Jasper stayed behind. "That was kind of you. Seattle instead of prison." "It wasn't kindness," I said, gathering my papers. "It was strategy. He'll be grateful, which means he'll be useful if we ever need him." "You've changed," he observed. "Had to." I looked out the boardroom windows at the city skyline. Francesca taught me that much at least. My phone buzzed. A message from Kendra. "Turn on the financial news now." I grabbed the remote and switched on the boardroom's wall-mounted screen. The headline made me smile. "Perry Industries announces major tech partnership. Stock soars." "Perfect timing," Jasper grinned. "Ready for your interview?" "Why, almost." I straightened my jacket and checked my reflection in the window. "How do I look?" "Like someone who just won a war." The elevator dinged and a news crew walked in, led by Kendra herself, now our head of PR. "They're ready for you," she said. "Remember, stick to the script. Nothing about Francesca or the investigation." I nodded, taking my position in front of the cameras. The interviewer, a sharp-looking woman in her 40s, settled into her chair. "Ms. Perry," she began, "your return to Perry Industries has been called a corporate fairy tale. How does it feel to be back?" I smiled directly into the camera, knowing Francesca would be watching from her tiny Tokyo office. "It feels right," I said. "Family businesses are built on trust, integrity, and vision. Sometimes we lose sight of those values, but with the right team and the right direction, anything is possible." "And the rumors about your sister's departure? I wish her all the best in her new role," I replied smoothly. "But today isn't about the past, it's about the future, and Perry Industries' future has never looked brighter." After the interview, Mom waited in my office, my real office, not the temporary one Francesca had used. "You were magnificent," she said, hugging me. "Your father would be so proud." I hugged her back, feeling the last pieces of my life click into place. "Thanks, Mom. Now, how about that family dinner you promised? I think we all have some catching up to do." "Lead the way," she smiled. "After all, that's what you do best." The autumn wind whipped around me as I stood on the office building's rooftop garden, watching the sunset paint the city skyline in shades of gold. Behind me, the door opened. "Thought I'd find you up here," Kendra said, joining me at the railing. "Big envelope came from Tokyo." I took the package, already knowing what it contained. Inside was a single document, Francesca's final resignation from her position in our Japanese office, along with a handwritten note. "You win. F. Guess she finally accepted reality?" Kendra mused. "Or found another target." I crumpled the note. Either way, it's done. My phone buzzed. Jasper was calling. "Val, turn on the news, right now." Kendra and I rushed to my office, where Mom and Tony were already watching the breaking news story. The headline made my heart stop. "Federal agents arrest former Perry Industries CEO in Tokyo. Corporate fraud charges filed." "She tried to do it again," Mom whispered. "Set up another takeover scheme in Japan." "But this time," Tony added, "someone was watching." I picked up my phone. "Jasper, did you—" "Not me," he said. "Apparently, she never learned to cover her tracks properly. Japanese authorities had been monitoring her for months." The office door burst open, and Dr. Sarah walked in, followed by Sabrina. We came as soon as we heard. Family meeting time? Kendra asked. I looked around at the faces in my office. Not just colleagues or allies anymore, but true family. People who'd stood by me, fought with me, believed in me when everything seemed darkest. Actually, I said, I have something to show you all first. I led them to the conference room, where a presentation was already queued up. Remember that children's hospital project Francesca killed last year? The one Dad always wanted to build? Their eyes widened as I clicked through the slides. Architectural plans, budgets, timelines. Construction starts next month, I announced, and we're naming it after Dad. Mom started crying. He would have loved this. There's more. I switched to the next slide. We're also launching a foundation to help victims of corporate fraud rebuild their lives. Kendra's brother will be running it. Val, Jasper said slowly, these projects, they'll cost millions. Worth every penny. I turned to face them all. Francesca taught me how easy it is to destroy things. Companies, relationships, trust. But Dad taught me the real power comes from building things, creating something meaningful. Speaking of building things, Sabrina interjected, the board approved your proposal this morning. The tech merger is official. My phone buzzed again, this time with news alerts. Our stock price was soaring as the merger announcement hit the markets. Everything we'd worked for was falling into place. You did it, Dr. Sarah said proudly. You didn't just take back what was yours. You made it better. We did it, I corrected her. All of us. Tony cleared his throat. Well, since we're all here, your mother and I have news too. Mom beamed. We're renewing our vows. Small ceremony, just family, real family. And, Tony added, we're hoping you'll be the maid of honor, Val. I hugged them both, feeling the last shadows of Francesca's betrayal fade away. This was what winning really looked like, not destroying your enemies, but building something stronger from the ruins they left behind. Drinks at Marco's, Kendra suggested. I think this calls for a celebration. As everyone headed out, I lingered in my office for a moment, looking at Dad's old photo on my desk. Next to it sat the crumpled note from Francesca, 2 reminders of very different legacies. You coming? Jasper called from the doorway. I dropped Francesca's note in the trash where it belonged. Right behind you. At Marco's, surrounded by laughter and love, I raised my glass. To family. The ones we're born with, and the ones we choose. To family, they echoed. Later that night, as the city lights twinkled below my office window, I sent one final email to Francesca's Tokyo lawyer. A simple message. The Children's Hospital project is still open to donations if she ever wants to be part of building something instead of destroying it. I didn't expect a response, but that wasn't the point. The point was that I'd finally learned what Dad always knew. True power isn't about control or revenge. It's about creating something meaningful, something lasting. And looking at what we'd built from the ashes of Francesca's betrayal, I knew we'd done exactly that.
I stared at my phone in disbelief, reading the message for the 5th time. My hands were trembling. Congratulations. You've been shortlisted for the Senior Marketing Strategist position. Interview tomorrow at 9 a.m. A job I hadn't even applied for at one of the most prestigious companies in the city, where my brother Benjamin worked. I'm Leah, and that message would change everything I thought I knew about family loyalty. This is incredible, I exclaimed to my best friend Jasmine over FaceTime. But why such short notice? The interview's literally tomorrow morning. Maybe someone dropped out, Jasmine suggested, adjusting her glasses. Girl, this is your chance. You've been wanting to leave that soul-crushing agency for months. I nodded, already pulling up the company website. Benjamin must have recommended me. He's been there for 3 years now. A warm feeling spread through my chest. Despite our competitive childhood, maybe he finally saw my worth. The next morning, I arrived 45 minutes early, my portfolio polished and my navy blazer perfectly pressed. The lobby buzzed with energy, all glass and chrome and purpose. I smoothed my skirt for the 100th time, when a tall man with silver hair approached. "Ms. Watson, I'm Joseph from HR. Please follow me." The interview room felt colder than the Arctic. Joseph's expression remained frozen as he flipped through my portfolio, barely glancing at the award-winning campaigns I'd crafted. "It says here you have experience in digital marketing," he said, his tone dripping with skepticism. "But your resume shows gaps in social media strategy." I blinked. "Actually, I led 3 viral campaigns last year. That's not what we've heard," he cut me off. "We received some interesting feedback about your capabilities." My stomach dropped. Something wasn't right. The questions that followed were brutal, focusing on imaginary weaknesses and fabricated shortcomings. By the time I left the room, my confidence lay in shreds around my feet. Needing a moment to compose myself, I ducked into the bathroom on the executive floor. A wrong turn that would reveal everything. "You should have seen her face," Benjamin's voice echoed from around the corner. When HR asked about those performance issues I mentioned, laughter followed. "Man, that's cold," someone responded. "Your own sister? Please, she's always been the golden child, thinking she's better than everyone else. Had to teach her a lesson, you know? Besides, we can't have her showing me up here too." My blood turned to ice. The portfolio I was clutching fell to the floor with a soft thud. "Seriously though," the other voice continued, "making up those complaints and arranging a fake interview? That's pretty harsh." "It's called strategy," Benjamin replied smugly. "Now she'll never try to get her foot in the door here again." I pressed my back against the cold wall, my heart hammering. The brother I'd grown up with, the one I'd helped through college breakups and career crises, had deliberately set me up to fail. My phone buzzed, a rejection email already. "Thank you for your interest, but we've decided to pursue other candidates," Jasmine called minutes later as I sat in my car, trying to breathe normally. "How did it go?" "Benjamin set me up." My voice cracked. "He arranged a fake interview just to humiliate me." "That snake," Jasmine's outrage crackled through the speaker. "Please tell me you're not going to let him get away with this?" I watched employees stream in and out of the building, my brother's words echoing in my head. The golden child. Had to teach her a lesson. My hands stopped shaking as a different kind of fire started burning in my chest. "No," I said quietly. "I'm not." "What are you going to do?" I straightened in my seat, watching Benjamin exit the building for his lunch break, laughing with his colleagues like he hadn't just betrayed his own sister. "I'm going to prove him right," I said, my voice steady now. "He thinks I'm better than everyone else. Fine. I'll show him exactly how much better I can be. And this time, I'm not doing it for him. I'm doing it for me." "Now that's the Leah I know," Jasmine said. "Where do we start?" I pulled out my laptop, opening a new document. "First, we research. I'm going to learn everything there is to know about this company, their challenges, their competitors, their future plans. Benjamin thinks he knows strategy. He hasn't seen anything yet. As I drove away from the building that morning, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the rearview mirror. The woman staring back wasn't broken, she was awakened. Sometimes betrayal doesn't destroy you, it ignites something far more dangerous. Determination. 2 months after the fake interview disaster, I found myself standing in front of my bedroom mirror, adjusting a sleek black dress. Sticky notes and printouts covered every surface of my apartment. Company reports, news articles, and sustainability initiatives. I'd become a walking encyclopedia of Benjamin's company. "You sure about this?" Jasmine asked, perched on my bed. "Crashing a charity gala is pretty bold." "I'm not crashing," I corrected, applying a final coat of lipstick. "I bought a ticket, legitimately, with 3 months' worth of coffee money. Best investment I've ever made." I grabbed my clutch. The company's CEO, Virginia, always attends this environmental gala. It's my chance to get noticed, the right way this time. The venue sparkled with elegant decorations and even more elegant people. I recognized faces from my research, board members, department heads, and there, Virginia Price herself, commanding attention in a deep green gown. "Well, if it isn't my favorite stalker," a male voice said behind me. I turned to find a familiar face, one of the voices from that day in the hallway. "Weston," I said, remembering his name from my research. "Enjoying the party?" He raised an eyebrow. "You know my name? I make it my business to know things." I sipped my champagne. "Like how your department's struggling with the new sustainability requirements." His smile faltered. "How did you—" "The same way I know your team's missing deadlines because the current strategy ignores Gen Z's social media habits." I met his gaze. "I'm Benjamin's sister, by the way, the one he tried to humiliate." Recognition flickered across his face. "Look, about that day—" "Save it," I cut him off. "I'm not here for apologies. I'm here because I have solutions your company needs." Before he could respond, a commotion near the stage drew our attention. Virginia was preparing to give her speech. "The future of business lies in sustainable practices," she began. "But sustainability isn't just about the environment. It's about sustainable relationships, sustainable growth, and sustainable social impact," I whispered along with her, having memorized her previous speeches. Weston shot me a surprised look. "You really did do your homework." After the speech, I positioned myself near the drinks table, waiting for my moment. Virginia approached, and I deliberately reached for the same glass of water. "Oh, I'm sorry," I said, withdrawing my hand. "Please, go ahead," she smiled. I shook my head. "Actually, I'd love your thoughts on something first if you have a moment. Your point about sustainable relationships resonated with me, especially regarding Gen Z consumer behavior." Her eyes sharpened with interest. "Go on." "Your recent initiatives are brilliant, but they're missing a crucial connection point." I pulled up a quick graph on my phone, one of many I'd prepared. "See this engagement drop? It's not about the message, it's about the medium." "Fascinating." Virginia leaned closer. "And you are?" "Leah, I'm actually—" "Virginia!" Benjamin's voice cut through the conversation like a knife. He appeared beside us, face flushed. "I see you've met my sister." "Your sister?" Virginia's eyebrows rose. "The one who interviewed for the marketing position?" Benjamin's smile turned brittle. "There must be some mistake. Leah was never seriously considered for—" "Actually," I interrupted smoothly, "I'd love to formally present these findings to your team. The data suggests you're losing millions in untapped market potential." Virginia studied me for a long moment, then pulled out her business card. "Email me your proposal. I'm intrigued." As she walked away, Benjamin grabbed my arm. "What do you think you're doing?" I pulled free. "Proving my worth. Isn't that what you wanted?" "You're making a fool of yourself," he hissed. "No, Benjamin. You already tried that approach, remember?" I straightened my dress. "Now I'm doing what you were always afraid I'd do. I'm showing everyone exactly what I'm capable of. Is everything okay here?" Weston appeared at my side, his presence a silent warning to Benjamin. "Perfect," I smiled. Benjamin was just leaving. As my brother stormed off, Weston turned to me. "You should know, there's more going on in the company than what's public. The sustainability department is just the tip of the iceberg." "What do you mean?" He glanced around nervously. "Not here, but if you're serious about this, I might be able to help." I studied him carefully. "Why would you help me?" "Let's just say I'm not a fan of watching talent get crushed by ego." He handed me his card. "Call me tomorrow." As I left the gala that night, Virginia's business card felt like it was burning a hole in my clutch. Phase 1 of my plan had worked better than I'd hoped, but Weston's warning echoed in my mind. I pulled out my phone to text Jasmine. "How did it go?" she asked immediately. "Better than expected," I replied, "but I think I just stepped into something much bigger than sibling rivalry." The coffee shop buzzed with morning energy as I waited for Weston. My laptop displayed the proposal I'd stayed up all night perfecting for Virginia. 3 empty cups testified to my dedication. "Someone's been busy," Weston said, sliding into the seat across from me. His tie was slightly crooked, and he had dark circles under his eyes. "Rough morning?" I asked. "Rough week. Benjamin's been on a warpath since the gala. He ordered an espresso. But that's not why I asked to meet. I closed my laptop. You mentioned something bigger going on. The company's facing a crisis. He lowered his voice. The sustainability initiative. It's failing. Bad numbers are being covered up, and Benjamin's department is right in the middle of it. My heart raced. How do you know this? I work in data analytics. Numbers don't lie, even when people do. He pulled out his phone, showing me a spreadsheet. See these discrepancies? Someone's cooking the books to hide massive losses in the green energy division. And Benjamin knows about this? He's not just aware, he's actively helping cover it up. Your brother's gotten very good at making bad things look good on paper. My phone buzzed. An email from Virginia. Meeting tomorrow, 10 a.m. Bring your proposal. Perfect timing, Weston said. Virginia suspects something's wrong but can't prove it. Your presentation could be the perfect cover to expose everything. I shook my head. I wanted to prove my worth, not destroy my brother's career. He didn't show you the same courtesy, Weston reminded me. Before I could respond, Jasmine burst into the coffee shop, waving her phone. Leah, you need to see this. She thrust her phone at me. It showed an internal company memo, somehow leaked online. My heart stopped when I read it. Previous hiring decisions under review, I read aloud. All recent rejections to be reassessed for potential bias or misconduct. They're investigating the interviews. Including yours, Jasmine said triumphantly. Weston cursed under his breath. This changes everything. Benjamin will try to destroy any evidence of what he did. He already tried destroying me, I said, my voice hard. How'd that work out for him? My phone rang. Benjamin. I answered on speaker. What did you do? He demanded. Me? I'm not the one who faked performance complaints and rigged an interview. You have no idea what you're messing with, he hissed. Back off, Leah, for your own good. Or what? You'll try to humiliate me again? This isn't about you anymore. His voice cracked. There are bigger things at stake, like the cooked books in your department, I shot back. The line went silent for a moment. Who told you about that? You're not the only one who knows how to gather intel, brother. Listen to me very carefully. His voice turned deadly serious. You present that proposal tomorrow, and I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. I laughed. Funny, I was about to say the same thing to you. After hanging up, I turned to find both Weston and Jasmine staring at me. That was badass, Jasmine grinned. And dangerous, Weston added. He's desperate now. Desperate people do stupid things. I opened my laptop again, pulling up my presentation. Then we better make sure my proposal is bulletproof. We worked through the afternoon, Weston providing insider insights while Jasmine helped polish the delivery. By evening, I had something that would either make my career or blow everything wide open. You sure about this? Jasmine asked as we packed up. Once you start this, there's no going back. Benjamin crossed that line when he decided to sabotage me, I replied. Besides, if what Weston says is true, this is bigger than our sibling rivalry. The company's sustainability claims affect real people making real investments. Weston touched my arm. Be careful tomorrow. Benjamin might try something desperate. Let him try, I said, but my confidence wavered as I remembered his threat. Later that night, as I rehearsed my presentation one final time, my phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Some family secrets should stay buried. Tomorrow's presentation would be a good time for a technical failure. I showed the message to Jasmine over FaceTime. They're trying to scare you, she said. Don't let them win. I stared at my reflection in the darkened window, remembering the humiliation of that first interview. They already played their best card, and I'm still standing. What's the plan? I smiled, thinking of the backup drives and cloud copies of my presentation. Tomorrow, I'm going to give them exactly what they deserve, the truth in all its uncomfortable glory. As I set my alarm for the next morning, another text came through. Last warning, back out now. I typed back a single response. See you tomorrow, brother. The elevator ride to the executive floor felt like ascending to a gladiator arena. My presentation USB stick weighed heavy in my pocket, one of 3 copies I'd brought, along with cloud backup. Jasmine's voice echoed in my head. Paranoid? Maybe. Prepared? Definitely. The conference room door opened before I could reach for it. Benjamin stood there, looking perfectly composed in his designer suit. Good morning, sister dear, he smiled, all teeth. Need help setting up? I've got it covered, I replied, clutching my laptop closer. Insist, I insist. He reached for my computer. As head of the department, it's my responsibility to ensure everything runs smoothly. Step away from the laptop, Benjamin. Weston appeared behind me, coffee cups in hand. I'm handling the technical setup today, executive orders. Benjamin's smile flickered. Since when? Since Virginia specifically requested it this morning. Weston handed me a coffee. Speaking of which, shouldn't you be preparing your own presentation? As Benjamin stalked away, I whispered, Thank you. Don't thank me yet, Weston muttered. Look who's here. Joseph from HR walked in, his face as stern as I remembered from the interview. He was followed by several board members, then Virginia herself. Leah, Virginia smiled warmly. We're eager to hear your thoughts on our sustainability initiatives. I connected my laptop while Weston stood guard. The screen flickered to life, showing my title slide. So far, so good. Before we begin, Benjamin interrupted, I think it's important to note that my sister has no official capacity here. Your sister, Virginia cut in, has demonstrated remarkable insight into our challenges. Please, Leah, proceed. I took a deep breath and launched into my presentation. Your current sustainability program isn't just underperforming, it's actively misleading stakeholders. The room tensed. I clicked to the next slide, showing a graph. These are your published figures, I continued. And these, another click, are the real numbers, buried in subsidiary reports and creative accounting. Benjamin's chair scraped back. This is ridiculous. She has no access to internal... Actually, Weston stood up. These figures are accurate. My department verified them this morning. Virginia leaned forward, her eyes intense. Continue, Leah. I walked them through the discrepancies, the hidden losses, the manipulated data. With each slide, Benjamin's face grew paler. Joseph scribbled furious notes. Then my screen went black. Technical difficulties? Benjamin smirked. Funny thing about preparation, I smiled back, pulling out my USB. I always bring backups. Before I could plug it in, Benjamin snatched it. This is corporate espionage. She's trying to... Upload to cloud backup complete. Weston's voice rang out. He held up his phone. Everything's already shared with the board's secure server. Virginia stood up. I think we need a break. Benjamin, Joseph, my office, now. As they filed out, Weston touched my shoulder. You okay? I nodded, though my hands were shaking. Did you see his face? The face of someone watching their house of cards collapse? Yeah. He checked his phone. Jasmine's downstairs. She's been texting me updates about the company's stock price all morning. Why are you helping me? I finally asked. Really? Weston sat on the edge of the table. 2 years ago, I noticed similar discrepancies. Tried to report them. Benjamin buried my concerns and had me transferred to a dead-end position. I've been waiting for a chance to set things right. The door burst open. Benjamin stormed in, his composure shattered. Happy now, he snarled. You've ruined everything. You ruined it yourself, I replied. I just exposed the truth. The truth? He laughed bitterly. The truth is, you've always been like this. Little Miss Perfect. Always having to prove you're better than everyone else. No, Benjamin. The truth is, you've always been so afraid of being outshined that you'd rather cheat than compete fairly. Compete fairly, in this industry. He stepped closer. You have no idea how things really work. Actually, Virginia's voice cut through the tension. She stood in the doorway, Joseph behind her. I think Leah understands exactly how things should work. Benjamin, security will escort you to clear out your desk. You're firing me over some cooked numbers, over fraud, deliberate misconduct, and creating a hostile work environment. Virginia turned to me. Leah, we'll need you to stay. There's much to discuss. As security led Benjamin away, he stopped beside me. Congratulations, sis. You won. I hope it was worth destroying our family. I watched him leave, victory tasting more bitter than I'd expected. Weston squeezed my shoulder. You did the right thing, he said softly. Then why doesn't it feel like winning? Because it's not over yet, Virginia called from the doorway. We need someone to clean up this mess, someone who understands both the problems and the solutions. She smiled. Interested in a job, Leah? 1 week into my new role as Sustainability Strategy Director, I found myself staring at Benjamin's old office, now mine. The nameplate had just been changed, and the irony wasn't lost on me. Still feels surreal? Weston asked, leaning against the doorframe. Everything in here screams Benjamin, I said, picking up a framed photo of our family from his desk drawer. Mom, Dad, Benjamin and me at his college graduation. God, what am I going to tell our parents? They called the office again this morning, Weston said quietly. Benjamin hasn't been answering his phone. My stomach twisted. Have you heard anything? Just rumors. He's been spotted at competitor companies trying to... A commotion outside interrupted us. Benjamin's voice carried through the office. Where is she? Leah. I stepped out of the office to find my brother, disheveled and unshaven, being blocked by security. Let him through, I said. The guards hesitated but stepped aside. Benjamin stormed toward me, his tie loose and hair unkempt. Enjoying your victory? He spat. My apartment's being repossessed, my reputation's ruined, and Mum and Dad won't stop calling. You did this to yourself, I replied, but my voice wavered. Did I? He laughed harshly. You know what's funny? I only sabotaged that interview because I knew you'd be better at this job than me. And look, I was right. Benjamin, save it. You want to know what it feels like to be the family disappointment. Well, now I know how you felt all those years, living in my shadow. Your shadow? I stepped closer. I never lived in your shadow. You just convinced yourself I did. Really? Perfect Leah with her perfect grades and perfect career. Perfect, I exploded. I worked 3 jobs to put myself through college while you coasted on Dad's connections. I earned everything I have. The office had gone silent, everyone watching our family drama unfold. And now you've earned my life too, he said bitterly. Congratulations. That's enough. Virginia's voice cut through the tension. Benjamin, you're trespassing. You don't understand, he turned to her. She's my little sister. I was supposed to protect her, guide her. Instead, His voice broke. Instead, you tried to destroy her career, Virginia finished, and in doing so, revealed your own misconduct. Security, please escort him out. As the guards approached, Benjamin pulled something from his pocket, a USB drive. You think you found all the evidence? He dangled it. There's enough dirt on here to bury half the executive board. Weston stepped forward. Don't do this, man. Why not? My career's already over. Might as well go out with a bang. I moved between Benjamin and the guards. Wait, everyone, please give us a minute. When the others reluctantly backed away, I faced my brother. Remember when I was 10 and I broke Mom's favorite vase? I asked softly. He frowned. What? You took the blame, said you did it while playing ball inside. You were grounded for 2 weeks. You were crying, he said quietly. I couldn't stand seeing you cry. What happened to that brother, the one who protected me? His hand holding the USB drive trembled. He grew up, realized the world doesn't reward kindness. No. I took a step closer. He got scared of not being enough, just like I was scared when you sabotaged my interview. Leah. But we're not kids anymore, Benjamin. This USB drive, it won't fix anything. It'll just hurt more people, including yourself. Tears welled in his eyes. I don't know how to fix this. Start by giving me the drive. I held out my hand. Let me help you, like you used to help me. The office remained deathly quiet as Benjamin stared at the USB drive. Finally, his shoulders slumped. I'm sorry, he whispered, placing it in my palm. I'm so sorry, Leah. As security gently led him out, Virginia approached me. That USB drive could be valuable evidence, she said. I looked at the small device in my hand. Or it could be blank, a desperate man's last bluff. She studied me carefully. And if it's not blank, then maybe, I met her gaze, maybe there's a way to fix things without destroying more lives, including my brother's. Virginia nodded slowly. You have 1 week to propose a solution. Make it count. After she left, Weston touched my arm. You okay? I looked at the family photo still on my desk, then at the USB drive that could either salvage or shatter what remained of my relationship with Benjamin. No, I admitted, but I will be. First, I need to make a call. To whom? I picked up my phone. Our parents. It's time they knew the truth, all of it. The boardroom hummed with tension as I connected my laptop to the projector. Every executive seat was filled, including one by my father, who sat stone-faced beside Virginia. After my call home, he'd been appointed as an independent advisor to oversee the company's restructuring. You don't have to do this, Weston whispered, helping me set up. Yes, I do. I straightened my blazer. It's the only way forward. The door opened, and Benjamin walked in, escorted by security. He looked better than last week, clean-shaven, suit pressed. Our eyes met briefly before he took his assigned seat. Thank you all for coming, I began. Last week's revelations about our sustainability program exposed serious issues. Today, I'm presenting not just problems, but solutions. I clicked to the first slide. The USB drive my brother tried to use as leverage. I reviewed its contents. The fraud went deeper than we thought, but it also revealed opportunities. Benjamin shifted uncomfortably. Dad's expression remained unreadable. Instead of hiding our sustainability failures, I continued, we have a chance to transform them into industry-leading successes. Here's how. The next hour was the most intense of my career. I laid out a comprehensive plan, transparent reporting, innovative green technologies, and community engagement programs. With each slide, I could feel the room's energy shifting. This all sounds promising, Virginia interjected, but the cost will be offset by the tax incentives and increased investor confidence, I finished. Plus, we'll avoid potential SEC penalties, which would be substantial, Dad finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of 40 years in corporate law. The evidence on that drive could trigger federal investigations. Benjamin stood up abruptly. You showed him the files? She showed me everything, Dad replied, including your original interview sabotage, son. The room went silent. Benjamin's face flushed. The question, I pressed on, isn't about past mistakes. It's about future solutions. Benjamin? All eyes turned to my brother as I gestured for him to join me at the front. What are you doing? He whispered. Giving you a chance to fix this, I replied. You know these programs better than anyone. Help me make them work. For a moment, he just stared at me. Then, slowly, he turned to face the board. Leah's right, he said, his voice gaining strength. I helped hide these problems because I thought exposure would destroy us. But her plan, it could actually work. The renewable energy division I've been managing. We've been sitting on breakthrough technology, afraid to implement it because of cost concerns. He grabbed a marker and started sketching on the whiteboard. If we redirect funds from these shell programs into actual development, for the next 30 minutes, Benjamin and I tag-teamed the presentation. It felt like we were kids again, finishing each other's sentences, building on each other's ideas. The board members leaned forward, engaged. This is impressive, Virginia said finally, but it requires complete transparency about past misconduct. I'll take full responsibility, Benjamin straightened. No more covers, no more lies. Not alone, you won't, I interjected. We do this as a team or not at all. Dad cleared his throat. The board will need time to consider. No, Virginia stood up. We don't need time. We need action. Leah, Benjamin, you have full authorization to implement this plan, effective immediately. After the meeting, Benjamin caught my arm as others filed out. Why? He asked simply. Because you were right about one thing. I am better at this job than you. But you're better at it than you think. We just needed to stop competing and start collaborating. I don't deserve this chance. Probably not, I smiled. Consider it payback for that vase. Dad approached us, his expression softening for the first time. Your mother would be proud. Well, proud and horrified, but mostly proud. Dad, Benjamin started. Save it for dinner, Dad cut him off. Your mother's cooking tonight. She expects both of you there. No excuses. As he left, Weston appeared with Jasmine, who'd been waiting outside. So? Jasmine bounced excitedly. How did it go? We're about to find out, I nodded toward Virginia, who was walking over. One question, Virginia said, looking between me and Benjamin. Can you two actually work together without killing each other? Benjamin glanced at me. We managed not to for the first 20 years of our lives. Most of them, anyway, I added. Virginia smiled. Good, because you're both going to be very busy. The press conference is in 1 hour. As she walked away, Benjamin turned to me. Press conference. Part of the transparency initiative, I grinned. Hope you're ready to face the cameras, brother. Together? He asked, extending his hand. I took it. Together. Camera flashes exploded as Benjamin and I walked onto the small stage in the company's press room. Virginia stood at the podium, commanding the attention of dozens of reporters. Before we begin, Virginia announced, I want to introduce our new leadership team for the Sustainability Division. Leah and Benjamin will be co-directing our renewed environmental initiatives. A reporter shot up his hand. Is it true the previous sustainability reports contained fraudulent data? Benjamin stepped forward before I could speak. Yes, he said firmly. And as the former department head, I take full responsibility for those misrepresentations. The room erupted. Cameras clicked frantically. What we're announcing today, I cut in, is not just an admission of past mistakes, but a revolutionary new approach to corporate environmental responsibility. And we're supposed to trust the same leadership that covered up the problems, another reporter challenged. No, I replied. You're supposed to verify everything we do from now on. That's why we're implementing total transparency protocols, including live data tracking accessible to the public. Weston, manning the presentation screen behind us, pulled up the new dashboard. Real-time sustainability metrics flickered across the display. Starting today, Benjamin added, every aspect of our environmental impact will be monitored and reported in real time. No more quarterly reports that can be manipulated, no more hidden data. A familiar face stood up, a journalist I recognized from my research. Sources say there was internal conflict between you two. How can you lead together given your history? I glanced at Benjamin, who nodded slightly. My brother and I learned the hard way that competition without integrity destroys more than it builds. I said, our new approach is built on collaboration, not conflict. And accountability, Benjamin stepped closer to the podium. 3 months ago, I sabotaged my sister's job interview out of professional jealousy. Today, she's showing all of us, a better way forward. The admission sent another wave of murmurs through the crowd. Dad, standing at the back of the room, gave us a subtle thumbs up. Virginia returned to the podium. We're announcing a complete restructuring of our environmental programs, including a $500 million investment in new green technologies. The questions flew fast after that. Benjamin and I tag-teamed the responses, each playing to our strengths. He handled the technical details. I managed the strategic vision. Together, we painted a picture of transformation that had the reporters leaning forward in their seats. Suddenly, Joseph from HR burst into the room, whispering urgently to Virginia, She frowned, then gestured for us to wrap up. "What's wrong?" I whispered as we left the stage. "Stock price is fluctuating wildly," Virginia explained, leading us to her office. "The market's not sure whether to panic about the fraud admission or celebrate the new initiative." Inside her office, Weston was already pulling up financial data. The numbers bounced between red and green. "We need to stabilize this," Benjamin said, loosening his tie, "before the shareholders panic." "Already on it." I pulled out my phone, dialing Jasmine. "Remember that social media strategy we discussed? Launch it, now." Within minutes, our new transparency dashboard was trending online. Real investors were praising our honesty. Environmental groups were cautiously optimistic. The stock began to stabilize. "Impressive teamwork," Virginia smiled. "But the real test starts tomorrow. The board wants daily progress reports." "They'll have them," Benjamin promised. "No more secrets." As the crisis subsided, Dad appeared in the doorway. "Your mother's waiting. Family dinner, remember?" The drive home was quiet until Benjamin spoke. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop, for you to reveal some master plan to destroy me completely." "That was never my goal," I replied. "I just wanted to prove I belonged here." "You more than proved that." He smiled sadly. "I'm sorry it took all this for me to see it." Mom was waiting on the porch when we pulled up. Her eyes were red from crying, but she opened her arms to both of us. "My brilliant, stupid children," she hugged us tight. "Come eat before the lasagna gets cold." Inside, over Mom's legendary cooking, we began the harder work of rebuilding our family. The conversation was awkward at first, then gradually warmed as old stories and shared memories broke down the walls we'd built. "A toast," Dad raised his glass, "to second chances, and third and fourth," Mom added, making us laugh. My phone buzzed, a message from Virginia. "Stock closed up 3%. Well done, both of you. Ready for tomorrow?" I looked at Benjamin, who was helping Mom clear the dishes, chatting animatedly about the new solar panel technology we'd be implementing. "We're ready," I texted back. Then, after a moment's thought, added, "All of us," because sometimes, I realized, the best revenge isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about transforming them into an ally. The autumn breeze rustled through the rooftop garden as I inspected the new solar panels. Our sustainability showcase had become my favorite spot in the building, a living testament to the changes we'd implemented. "There you are," Jasmine called, stepping out of the elevator. "The documentary crew is waiting downstairs." "Tell them I need 5 minutes. You said that 20 minutes ago." She joined me at the railing. "Nervous about the interview?" "Not nervous, just..." I gestured at the garden, taking it all in. The door opened again, and Benjamin appeared. "The crew's getting restless. Also, Virginia wants us to review the quarterly numbers before the interview." I pulled out my tablet, showing him the latest data. "Already done. We're up 40% across all environmental metrics. Look at you two," Jasmine grinned, "actually working together without trying to commit corporate homicide." "The day is still young," Benjamin joked, but his smile was genuine. My phone buzzed, a text from Mum. "Good luck today. Dad and I are recording the interview." "Love you both." "We should head down," Benjamin said, checking his watch. "Ready to tell our story?" I took one last look at the garden. "Almost. There's something I need to say first." He raised an eyebrow. "Sounds ominous. I found this in my desk yesterday." I pulled out a crumpled paper, his original complaint about my job interview. "The one that started everything." His face fell. "Leah, I'm framing it." "What?" "It's going on my office wall," I explained, "to remind me that sometimes our worst moments can lead to our best opportunities." Benjamin was quiet for a moment. "I have something for you too." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "My official promotion recommendation. You're being considered for COO." I stared at the envelope. "But that was your goal. You've been working toward that position for years. And you're better suited for it," he said simply. "I've learned to recognize that now." Jasmine cleared her throat. As touching as this is, we really need to— One more minute, I promised, turning back to Benjamin. Remember what you said at that first press conference about competition without integrity? He nodded. Well, I'm not taking the COO position unless we're both up for consideration. Fair competition this time. You'd risk losing it. I'd risk winning it the right way. I held out my hand. Partners? He clasped it firmly. Partners. The documentary interview went smoothly. We sat side by side, telling our story. The sabotage, the revenge, the redemption. The interviewer seemed particularly interested in our current dynamic. So you've completely forgiven each other? She asked skeptically. Forgiveness isn't a destination, I replied. It's a daily choice. Like sustainability, it takes constant work and commitment. And trust, Benjamin added, which has to be earned back one day at a time. After the crew packed up, Virginia called us into her office. Weston was already there, grinning. The board just approved your joint proposal, Virginia announced. The international expansion of our sustainability program is green-lit. Both of us? Benjamin asked. Both of you, she confirmed. They were impressed by how you've turned rivalry into partnership. Speaking of which, she slid 2 folders across her desk. These are your COO candidacy papers. The board wants to consider you both. I caught Benjamin's eye and smiled. Looks like we get our fair competition after all. About that, Weston interrupted. The board had an interesting idea. They're considering splitting the COO role. One focusing on operations, one on innovation. They can do that? I asked. Virginia nodded. They can when they have 2 exceptional candidates who work better together than apart. Later, as Benjamin and I rode the elevator down, he turned to me. You know, when you first came back for revenge, I thought you were going to destroy everything I'd built. I did too, I admitted. Funny how things work out. Mum's planning a celebration dinner, he said. Says she's inviting the whole family, including Aunt Susan, the one who always asks when we're getting married. Especially her. He grinned. Consider it karma for all the times I threw you under the bus at family gatherings. The elevator doors opened to the lobby, where Jasmine and Weston were waiting. Ready for dinner? Jasmine asked. I looked at my brother, my rival turned partner, and felt a warmth that had nothing to do with revenge or victory. Actually, I said, we're ready for whatever comes next, because sometimes the best endings aren't about winning or losing. They're about finding a better way forward, together.
The manila envelope hit my kitchen table with a dull thud that seemed to echo through my entire body. My father-in-law Ian's perfectly manicured hand rested on top of it, his gold wedding band catching the morning light. This house will be ours by the month's end, he said, lips curling into what I can only describe as a predatory smile. And Travis will finally have a proper family. I'm Zoe, and until 6 months ago, I thought I understood what family meant. Then my husband Casey died in a car accident, and his parents showed their true colours, faster than autumn leaves turning brown. Travis has a proper family, I said, my hands gripping the back of my kitchen chair so hard my knuckles turned white. He has me. Deborah, my mother-in-law, gave that little laugh of hers, the one that sounds like wind chimes made of ice. Dear, you can barely afford the property taxes on this house. How do you expect to raise our grandson on a teacher's salary? I glanced toward the stairs, grateful that Travis was at kindergarten. He didn't need to witness this ambush. I managed just fine. Casey left us well provided for. Did he? Ian slid the envelope toward me. Because according to these documents, the house was never properly transferred into your name. A terrible oversight. My hands trembled as I opened the envelope. Inside were property documents, legal papers, and what appeared to be a notice of eviction. The dates, signatures, everything looked official, but something felt off. This is impossible, I said, scanning the papers. Casey and I signed the deed transfer together last year. Clearly there was an error in processing, Ian said, straightening his designer tie. These things happen. But don't worry, Ian. We'll make sure Travis maintains his standard of living. By taking him away from his mother? My voice cracked, but I forced myself to meet Ian's gaze. He's 5 years old, he needs me. Deborah moved closer, her expensive perfume suffocating me. We have resources, Zoe. The best lawyers, character witnesses, financial statements showing your inadequacies as a provider. Do you really want to put Travis through a lengthy court battle? Get out! The words came out barely above a whisper. Excuse me? Ian's smile vanished. I said get out of my house. I straightened up, finding strength I didn't know I had. Now. Ian gathered his coat, that smug expression returning. Our lawyer will be in touch. Do consider what's best for Travis. A settlement could make this easier for everyone. After they left, I sank into my chair, the papers scattered before me like fallen soldiers. My phone buzzed. A text from my sister Andrea. How did it go? I snapped a photo of the documents and sent it to her. Within seconds, my phone rang. These look suspicious, Andrea said without preamble. The notary stamp is dated for a Sunday. Government offices are closed on Sundays, Zoe. Hope flickered in my chest. What are you saying? I'm saying don't sign anything. Don't agree to anything. I'm coming over after work and we're going through every piece of paper Casey ever touched. I ended the call and walked to the living room where Casey's photo sat on the mantel. He was smiling, holding Travis on his shoulders at the beach last summer. Your parents are trying to take everything we built, I whispered to his image. But I won't let them. I promise. My phone buzzed again. A reminder to pick up Travis from school. I grabbed my keys, but before leaving I gathered every document Ian had left and locked them in my home office. Something about those papers nagged at me, like a loose thread begging to be pulled. As I drove to Travis's school, I thought about Casey's last words to me. Keep an eye on Dad's paperwork. At the time, I'd assumed he was delirious from his injuries. Now, I wondered if he'd been trying to warn me. I arrived at the school just as the children were being dismissed. Travis ran to me, his backpack bouncing, dark curls wild from play. Mommy, I drew a dinosaur today. I hugged him tight, breathing in his familiar scent of crayons and apple juice. That's wonderful, baby. Why don't you tell me all about it on the way home? As he chatted excitedly in the back seat, I made a silent vow. Ian and Deborah might have money and influence, but I had something stronger. The truth that Casey tried to share, hidden somewhere in our home. And I was going to find it. Andrea spread the documents across my dining room table while Isla paced behind us, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. The house was quiet. Travis had finally fallen asleep upstairs after an hour of just one more story, Mommy. Look at this, Andrea said, pointing to a line on the eviction notice. The property ID number doesn't match your deed. It's off by 1 digit. Isla leaned over our shoulders. Could that be just a typo? A typo on legal documents that could determine custody of a child? Andrea shook her head. No way! This was rushed. Sloppy work. I reached for my coffee, now cold from hours of document review. So they're definitely forged? Oh, they're forged all right, Andrea confirmed, her lawyer mode in full swing. But proving it in court, that's another matter. Ian has connections with every major law firm in the city. Except yours, Isla pointed out. Andrea smiled grimly. True, but I'm just starting out, going against someone like Rodney Hudson. He's been winning custody battles since I was in middle school. My stomach churned at the mention of Ian's attorney. I'd only met him once at Casey's funeral, where he'd handed me his business card with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. There has to be something else, I said, standing up to stretch. Casey, he tried to tell me something about Ian's paperwork before he died. Isla stopped pacing. What exactly did he say? Just to keep an eye on his dad's paperwork. He was in and out of consciousness at the hospital, so I didn't. My voice caught. I didn't think much of it then. Where did Casey keep his work stuff? Andrea asked, already heading toward my home office. Most of it's in boxes in the garage, I said, following her. He was always bringing work home, especially in the last few months before the accident. The garage was cold and smelled of cardboard and motor oil. 3 large boxes marked work sat in the corner, untouched since Casey's death. I couldn't bring myself to go through them before. Start with the most recent, Andrea instructed, pulling out her phone to use as a flashlight. We began sorting through papers, financial reports, meeting minutes, investment portfolios. Most of it looked like standard business documents, until Isla held up a USB drive. Found this taped to the bottom of a folder, she said. Andrea plugged it into her laptop, and we huddled around the screen. Most files were encrypted, but one opened, a spreadsheet showing wire transfers to offshore accounts. Holy shit, Andrea whispered. These amounts, they're massive. And look at the dates. They align perfectly with the company's major property acquisitions. What does that mean? I asked, though I was starting to understand. It means, Andrea said slowly, that Ian might have been cooking the books, inflating purchase prices, skimming off the top. This could be evidence of serious fraud. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. My blood ran cold as I read it. Back off now, or Travis won't be the only thing you lose. I showed it to Andrea and Isla. Save it, Andrea said immediately. Screenshot it, email it to yourself, everything. This is harassment. They're scared, Isla realized. They know you might have something on them. I sank onto a nearby workbench. What do I do? If they're willing to threaten me? You fight back, Andrea said firmly. These documents they're using against you. They're not just forged. They're desperate. Ian's trying to silence you before you figure out what Casey knew. But Travis is safer with you fighting than giving in, Isla interrupted. Think about it. If they're willing to do this to you, what would they teach him? She was right. I thought about Travis upstairs, peaceful in his race car bed, clutching the stuffed dinosaur Casey gave him for his last birthday. I thought about Ian's smug smile, Deborah's cold laugh, and Casey's final warning. Okay, I said, standing up straighter. What's our next move? Andrea was already typing on her laptop. First, we document everything. Then I have a friend in the DA's office who specializes in financial crimes. We need to move carefully, build our case before they realize what we have. I can help too, Isla added. My firm handles PR for half the judges in the circuit. I hear things. Could be useful to know which judges might be in Ian's pocket. For the first time since Ian dropped that envelope on my table, I felt hope. It wasn't just me against them anymore. I had allies, evidence, and most importantly, the truth on my side. Casey knew, I said softly. He was trying to expose them, wasn't he? Andrea squeezed my hand. And now you'll finish what he started. We worked through the night, organizing documents and building our case. Somewhere above us, Travis slept soundly, unaware that his mother was preparing for the fight of her life. The attic was stifling even at midnight. I shifted another dusty box, my flashlight beam catching cobwebs and forgotten memories. Travis was at a sleepover with his best friend. The first night I'd let him out of my sight since Ian's threats began. Casey, where did you hide it? I whispered, remembering his odd behavior in the weeks before the accident. He'd spent hours up here claiming to be organizing old files. My hand brushed against something solid behind a stack of photo albums. A leather-bound journal, its spine cracked with age. I'd never seen it before. My phone rang, making me jump. Andrea's name flashed on the screen. They filed the custody papers, she said without preamble. Hearing set for 3 weeks from now. 3 weeks? My voice echoed in the empty attic. That's too soon. They're pushing for emergency custody, claiming you're mentally unstable from grief. Andrea's voice hardened. They've got a psychiatrist ready to testify. A psychiatrist who's never even met me, I'm guessing. Probably on Ian's payroll. Papers shuffled on her end. Have you found anything useful up there? I opened the journal, my flashlight illuminating Casey's familiar handwriting. Maybe. I found some kind of diary. Hold on. The first few entries were mundane. Business meetings, lunch appointments. Then, halfway through, Dad's been moving money again. Same pattern as before. Need to track the transfers. Andrea, I said, my heart racing. Listen to this. Found proof of the shell companies. Everything leads back to the Cayman accounts. Key in office safe. Key? What key? I flipped through more pages, scanning entries. Wait, there's more. Dad threatened to cut me out if I don't stay quiet. Told him I have copies of everything. He doesn't know where. The USB drive we found isn't enough, Andrea said. We need those copies. A loose photograph fell from between the pages. Casey in his office, standing next to a large painting of a sailboat. I'd always hated that painting. He'd insisted on hanging it despite it clashing with everything else in the room. I need to check something, I said, hurrying down the attic stairs. Call you back. In Casey's office, the painting hung exactly as he'd left it. I'd never moved it. Couldn't bring myself to change anything in here. Now I lifted it carefully from the wall. Behind it was a small wall safe. Clever, Casey, I whispered, running my fingers along the edges. But where was the key? I returned to the journal, reading more carefully. One entry caught my eye. Moved everything to the new safe. Key's where we first met, she'll understand. Where we first met. My mind raced back 7 years to that little coffee shop downtown. Casey had been reading a book. I ran to our bedroom bookshelf, pulling out his old copy of The Great Gatsby. There, pressed between the pages, was a small silver key. My hands shook as I called Andrea. I found it, I said, but I haven't opened the safe yet. Should I wait? No, she said firmly. We need to know what we're dealing with. Put me on speaker. The key slid in perfectly. Inside the safe were folders, USB drives, and a sealed envelope with my name on it. There's so much here, I said, spreading the contents on Casey's desk. Financial records, photographs of documents. Andrea, these look like private banking records from the Cayman Islands. Take photos of everything right now, then pack it all up and bring it to my office first thing tomorrow. A car door slammed outside. I froze. Someone's here, I whispered. Get everything back in the safe, Andrea ordered. Now, text me when they're gone. I shoved the documents back, locked the safe, and barely had the painting back in place when the doorbell rang. My heart pounding, I went downstairs. Deborah stood on my porch, perfectly coiffed despite the late hour. Isn't it past your bedtime? I asked, not opening the screen door. We need to talk, she said, about Travis's future. There's nothing to talk about. She sighed dramatically. Ian's willing to be generous, Zoe. A substantial settlement. Enough for you to start fresh somewhere else. You mean enough to abandon my son? Be reasonable, she snapped, mask slipping. You can't win this. Ian never loses. I thought of the safe upstairs, filled with Casey's careful documentation of their crimes. There's a first time for everything. After she left, I texted Andrea. Safe for now, but they're getting desperate. Her reply came instantly. Good. Desperate people make mistakes. Get some sleep. Tomorrow we go to war. I returned to Casey's office, touching the painting gently. You knew, didn't you? You were protecting us all along. For the first time since finding the journal, I opened the envelope with my name on it. Inside was a single sentence. Trust yourself. You're stronger than they know. Andrea's office buzzed with energy as she spread Casey's documents across her conference table. Isla sat beside me, taking notes on her laptop while Travis played with his toys in the corner, headphones on, watching cartoons on my iPad. This is incredible, Andrea said, holding up a document. Look at these signatures. Ian was authorizing transfers to fake companies, then routing the money back through personal accounts. In English, please, I said, glancing at Travis to make sure he wasn't listening. Your father-in-law was stealing from his own company, Isla translated. Millions of dollars hidden in offshore accounts. And Casey documented all of it, Andrea added. Bank statements, wire transfers, even photos of meetings with sketchy investors who were really just Ian's cronies. My hands trembled as I picked up another folder. Will it be enough? To stop the custody case? Absolutely. To send Ian to prison? Even better. The conference room door burst open. Rodney Hudson stood there, his expensive suit as impeccable as his timing was suspicious. Ladies, he said smoothly, having a little meeting. I moved to block Travis from view, but Rodney had already spotted him. Ah, young Travis. How convenient. I need to document his current living conditions anyway. Get out! Andrea snapped, standing. This is a private meeting. Private? With evidence pertaining to my clients scattered all over the table. Rodney pulled out his phone. Mind if I take a few pictures? Isla stepped forward. Try it, and I'll have security up here so fast your head will spin. I'm still on the building's board of directors. Rodney's smile faltered slightly. Ian wanted me to deliver a message. A final offer. Walk away now. Take $2 million and we forget everything. Everything, I laughed, surprising myself with how cold it sounded. Like how Ian embezzled company funds, or how he forged documents to try stealing my house. Careful, Mrs. Santiago. Accusations like that could be considered defamatory. Only if they're false, Andrea countered. Now leave, or I'll file for a restraining order. After Rodney left, Isla made a call to building security while Andrea quickly packed up the documents. They know we have something, she said. We need to move fast. I'm filing these with the DA today. What about Travis? I asked, watching my son happily playing, oblivious to the tension around him. He stays with you, Andrea assured me. No judge will grant custody to grandparents under federal investigation for fraud. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Final warning. Take the deal. I showed it to Andrea and Isla. Perfect, Andrea said, snapping a photo of my screen. More evidence of harassment. They're digging their own grave. I don't understand, I said. Why not just let me keep the house? Why try to take Travis? Isla's eyes widened. Because Travis is Casey's heir. If anything happens to Ian, Travis would inherit controlling interest in the company, Andrea finished, with you as his guardian until he's of age. They're not just trying to hurt me, I realized. They're trying to protect their scheme. Mom, Travis called out. Can we get lunch? I'm hungry. Of course, baby. I turned to Andrea. What's our next move? I'm meeting my contact at the DA's office in an hour. Isla, can you get Zoe and Travis somewhere safe, just in case? Isla nodded. My lake house. It's gated. Private security. They'll never find them there. I gathered Travis's things, trying to make it seem like an adventure rather than an escape. Hey, buddy, how about a little vacation? Aunt Isla has a house with a huge yard and a tire swing. Really? Can I bring Rex? He hugged his dinosaur toy tighter. Of course you can. As we left through the back entrance, I saw Rodney in the lobby, talking intensely on his phone. He didn't see us. In Isla's car, Travis fell asleep almost immediately. Rex clutched to his chest. I watched the city fade away through the window, thinking about Casey's words in his letter. Trust yourself. You're stronger than they know. My phone buzzed again. Andrea this time. DA is reviewing everything. Says it's biggest fraud case she's seen in years. Stay safe. We'll call tonight. Isla glanced at me. You okay? Yeah, I said, surprising myself by meaning it. For the first time since Casey died, I feel like I'm doing exactly what he would have wanted. Which is? I looked back at Travis, peaceful in his car seat. Protecting our son and making sure justice is served. Even if it means sending your in-laws to prison? Especially then. I touched the window, watching rain begin to fall. They chose money over family. Now they'll lose both. The highway stretched ahead, leading us towards safety while behind us, Andrea prepared to unleash the truth Casey died protecting. The storm was coming, and for once I wasn't afraid of getting caught in it. 3 days at Isla's lake house felt like living in a different world. Travis spent his days exploring the sprawling yard while I jumped at every unexpected sound. The trial was just 2 weeks away. Mommy, look what I found! Travis ran up to the porch, holding something in his muddy hands. It's like Daddy's. My heart stopped. In his palm lay a silver key, similar to the one I'd found in Casey's book. Where did you get that, sweetie? By the big tree, there's a box there. I followed him to an ancient oak near the property line. Half buried in its roots was a small metal lockbox, weathered but intact. My phone rang. Andrea. Turn on the news, she said without greeting. Channel 7. I rushed inside, Travis trailing behind me. Isla was already watching, her face pale. On screen, Ian stood outside his company headquarters, surrounded by reporters. The ticker below read, "Major fraud investigation launched. CEO denies allegations." "The accusations are baseless," Ian was saying, his usual confidence wavering. "This is a family matter being twisted by—" The feed cut to a reporter. "Sources say evidence of massive financial fraud was delivered to the DA's office earlier this week, including documents allegedly collected by the CEO's late son, Casey Santiago, before his death last year." "They're running scared," Andrea said in my ear. "But Zoe, be careful. I just got a copy of a letter they're planning to submit to the court." "What letter?" "They're claiming Casey was mentally unstable before his death, that he fabricated the evidence during a breakdown." Travis tugged at my sleeve. "Mom, can I show you the box now?" "1 second, baby." I turned back to the phone. "They're trying to discredit him?" "It gets worse. They've got a psychiatrist willing to testify that grief has made you paranoid, that you're clinging to Casey's delusions." Isla muted the TV. "Zoe, Travis found something you need to see." I followed them back outside to the oak tree. The lockbox was small, rusty around the edges. The key Travis found fit perfectly. Inside was a USB drive and a sealed envelope dated 1 week before Casey's accident. My hands shook as I opened it. "Andrea," I said into the phone, "Casey was here, at Isla's house. He left something." "What? That's impossible. How would he—" "Because I told him he could use it," Isla interrupted. "He called me last year, said he needed a safe place to store some documents. I gave him the gate code but never knew if he came." I scanned Casey's letter, my breath catching. Andrea, he knew. He knew they might try to discredit him. This letter, it's a sworn statement about Ian's fraud, witnessed by a federal judge. "A judge? Which one?" "Judge Margaret Reynolds." Andrea gasped. "Reynolds is handling your custody case. She's known for being incorruptible. That's why Ian's been trying to get it moved to another court." Travis, bored with adult conversation, had wandered back to his play area. I watched him through tears, seeing so much of Casey in his movements. "There's more," I said, reading further. "Bank account numbers, dates, names of everyone involved. Casey created a complete backup of everything." "This changes everything," Andrea said. "They can't claim he was unstable if he was clear-headed enough to get a federal judge involved. And Reynolds will have to recuse herself now. She's a potential witness." My phone beeped with an incoming text. Unknown number again. "You think you're safe at the lake house? Think again." "Andrea," I said, my voice tight, "they know where we are. Get out of there. Now. I'm calling the police." Isla was already moving. "My car's packed. I always keep emergency bags ready." I ran to Travis. "Baby, we need to go on another adventure, okay?" "But I like it here." "I know, but—" Headlights swept across the lawn as a car pulled up to the gate. "Isla." "Back door," she said calmly, grabbing Travis's hand. "I have a boat ready at the dock. Standard evacuation procedure." "You have an evacuation procedure?" She smiled grimly. "I work in corporate PR. You'd be surprised what you need to prepare for." We slipped out through the back just as someone started pounding on the front door. Travis, sensing our fear, stayed quiet as we hurried down the path to the private dock. The boat was small but fast. As Isla steered us across the dark lake, I held Travis close, the lockbox clutched in my free hand. "Where are we going?" he whispered. "Somewhere safe," I promised, watching the lights of pursuing vehicles reflect off the water behind us. "And this time, we're not running away. We're running toward something." "What?" I thought of Casey's letter, of Judge Reynolds, of all the evidence now safely in our possession. "Justice, baby. We're running toward justice." My phone lit up with a message from Andrea. "Police en route. Judge Reynolds wants to meet. First thing tomorrow. We've got them." The courthouse buzzed with tension as I sat beside Andrea, Travis safely tucked away with Isla at a secure location. Ian and Deborah sat across the aisle, their perfect postures betraying no hint of the chaos they'd caused at the lake house last night. Judge Reynolds entered, her stern expression revealing nothing about our early morning meeting where she'd reviewed Casey's sworn statement. "Your Honor, Rodney began, standing smoothly. Given recent developments, we request a change of venue due to potential. Denied, Judge Reynolds cut him off. This court is well aware of the circumstances. Proceed with your case. Rodney recovered quickly, launching into a practiced speech about my supposed instability. Mrs. Santiago has exhibited increasingly paranoid behavior since her husband's death. She's made outlandish accusations, fled with the child to hidden locations. Objection, Andrea interrupted. Counsel is presenting speculation as fact. Sustained, Judge Reynolds said. Mr. Hudson, do you have any actual evidence of Mrs. Santiago's alleged instability? We have an expert witness, Your Honor. Dr. Phillips. A grey-haired man in an expensive suit took the stand. I'd never seen him before in my life. Dr. Phillips, you've evaluated Mrs. Santiago's mental state. Based on observed behaviours and reported incidents. Objection, Andrea stood. The witness has never met my client. This is hearsay. Your Honour, Rodney pressed, Dr. Phillips is a leading expert in grief-induced paranoia. Judge Reynolds leaned forward. Has Dr. Phillips ever treated Mrs. Santiago? Well, no, but then his testimony is inadmissible. Next witness. I watched Ian's face redden as his carefully constructed case began crumbling. Deborah clutched her designer handbag so tightly her knuckles turned white. Your Honour, Rodney tried again. We have documentation showing Mrs. Santiago's financial inability to provide. Actually, Andrea interrupted, approaching the bench with a folder, we have evidence that the financial documents previously submitted to this court were fraudulent. The gallery buzzed with whispers. Ian stood abruptly. Your Honour, I object to these baseless accusations. Sit down, Mr. Santiago, Judge Reynolds ordered. Ms. Butler, proceed. Andrea projected a document onto the courtroom screen. This is a bank statement submitted by the plaintiffs, showing Mrs. Santiago's supposed financial distress. And this, she switched images, is the actual statement from the bank, showing a very different picture. These documents are stolen, Rodney protested. Obtained illegally. They were obtained, Andrea said clearly, by Casey Santiago before his death, along with evidence of extensive financial fraud perpetrated by Ian Santiago. Evidence that was documented and witnessed by... She paused meaningfully. This very court. The room erupted. Judge Reynolds banged her gavel. Order! Your Honour, Rodney sputtered. This is highly irregular. What's irregular, Judge Reynolds said, is attempting to use fraudulent documents to gain custody of a child while under federal investigation. Ian stood again. You demand nothing, Judge Reynolds snapped. Sit down, or I'll have you removed. She turned to me. Mrs. Santiago, do you have anything to add? I stood, my voice steadier than I expected. Yes, Your Honour. I'd like to submit Casey's final letter into evidence, the one he wrote explaining exactly why he feared his parents might try to take our son. Rodney jumped up. Objection. This is all hearsay from a deceased witness whose testimony was properly documented and notarized, Andrea countered, by Judge Reynolds herself. The courtroom fell silent. Ian and Deborah exchanged panicked looks as their lawyer frantically flipped through his papers. Furthermore, Andrea continued, we have evidence of ongoing harassment, including threats made against my client last night when the plaintiff's associates trespassed on private property. Judge Reynolds studied the room for a long moment. I've heard enough. This court finds no merit in the plaintiff's petition for custody. Moreover, given the evidence of fraudulent documents and witness intimidation, I'm referring this matter to the District Attorney's Office. Your Honour, Rodney protested. In addition, she continued, I'm issuing an immediate restraining order preventing Ian and Deborah Santiago from coming within 500 feet of Mrs. Santiago or her son. I heard Deborah's sharp intake of breath, saw Ian's face turn from red to ashen. This case is dismissed. The gavel banged with finality. Mrs. Santiago, you are free to go. As court officers approached Ian and Deborah, Andrea squeezed my hand. It's over. Not quite, I said, watching my in-laws being read their rights. The criminal case is just beginning. My phone buzzed. A photo from Isla, showing Travis playing happily in their secure location, blissfully unaware that his future had just been secured. Casey would be proud, Andrea said softly. He knew, I replied, gathering my things as Ian and Deborah were led away. He knew exactly what would happen. That's why he left us a path to follow. Outside the courthouse, reporters waited with cameras, but I barely noticed them. All I could think about was getting to Travis, holding him close, and finally starting our new life, free from threats, free from fear, and full of the truth Casey had fought to protect. The federal courthouse was a different kind of intimidating than family court. I sat in the witness box facing not just Ian and Deborah, but a jury of 12 people who would decide their fate. Mrs. Santiago, the prosecutor began, please tell us when you first became aware of the financial irregularities at your father-in-law's company. I glanced at Travis, sitting between Andrea and Isla in the gallery, absorbed in his colouring book. 3 months had passed since the custody hearing, and he'd grown so much stronger, happier. It started with the custody case, I explained. They tried to use forged documents to take my son, but my husband had already discovered their scheme. Objection, Ian's new lawyer called out. Speculation about the deceased's knowledge. Overruled, the judge said. Continue. I held up Casey's journal. My husband documented everything. The fake companies, the offshore accounts, the money laundering. He knew they'd try to discredit him, so he created a failsafe. The prosecutor displayed Casey's sworn statement on the courtroom screens. This statement, witnessed by Judge Reynolds, details over $50 million in embezzled funds. Can you tell us how you found this evidence? My son, I said, smiling at Travis, found the key to a lockbox containing the final proof. Casey had hidden it somewhere he knew only I would think to look. Ian's face contorted with rage. Deborah dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, her perfect makeup finally cracking. The prosecutor presented more documents. These bank records show regular transfers to accounts in the Cayman Islands, all authorized by the defendant, Ian Santiago. Mrs. Santiago, did your husband explain why he began investigating these transfers? Yes. He discovered that client funds were being diverted, properties were being purchased at inflated prices, and the difference was being pocketed through shell companies. And when he confronted his father, Ian threatened to destroy him. I met my father-in-law's gaze. Casey recorded that conversation too. The courtroom speakers crackled with Casey's voice. Dad, this has to stop. What you're doing is illegal. Ian's recorded voice replied, You ungrateful little... I built this company. Everything you have is because of me. Cross me, and I'll make sure you lose it all. Deborah broke down, sobbing. Ian's attorney requested a recess, but the judge denied it. Mrs. Santiago, the prosecutor continued, what happened after this confrontation? A week later, Casey died in a car accident. His brakes failed. The jury stirred. This was new information. The FBI had only recently concluded their investigation into Casey's death. Objection, Ian's lawyer shouted. This is prejudicial. Your Honor, the prosecutor countered, we have the FBI's forensic report confirming tampering with the victim's vehicle. The judge allowed it. Ian's face went pale. Mrs. Santiago, what do you believe was your husband's ultimate goal in gathering this evidence? He wanted to protect our son, I said, my voice steady. He knew what they were capable of. He knew they'd try to take Travis to maintain control of the company. So he left us a way to fight back. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. During cross-examination, Ian's lawyer tried to paint Casey as unstable, me as vindictive, but the evidence was too strong, the paper trail too clear. When the jury returned after only 2 hours of deliberation, Travis had fallen asleep in Andrea's lap. On the count of conspiracy to commit fraud, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of money laundering? Guilty. On the count of witness tampering? Guilty. Count after count, the word guilty rang through the courtroom. When they reached the final charge, conspiracy to commit murder. I held my breath. Guilty. I watched as federal marshals led Ian and Deborah away in handcuffs. They wouldn't be eligible for parole for at least 20 years. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed us again, but Isla's PR team created a path through them. Andrea carried sleeping Travis to the car while I made a brief statement. My husband died trying to expose the truth, I said into the microphones. Today, that truth finally came to light. Later that evening at home, I found Travis in Casey's office looking at his father's photo. Daddy was a hero, wasn't he? He asked. I sat beside him, pulling him close. Yes, baby. He protected us even when he couldn't be here. Like a guardian angel? Exactly like that. My phone buzzed. A message from Andrea. Federal seizure of assets approved. Travis's trust fund restored. Everything Ian stole goes back to the victims. I looked at Casey's photo, at his kind eyes and knowing smile. He'd left us everything we needed. Evidence, allies, and most importantly, the strength to fight. Mom, Travis asked, can we get ice cream? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. Yes, baby, we can get ice cream. Justice had been served, but more importantly, our future was finally our own. The morning sun streamed through Casey's office window as I packed the last of the court documents into storage boxes. Travis sat at his father's desk, carefully arranging action figures between stacks of papers. Mom, look what I found. He held up a small photo that had slipped behind the desk. It showed Casey and me at that coffee shop where we first met, both of us laughing over spilled cappuccino. My phone buzzed. Andrea calling. Have you seen the news? I switched on the office TV. A reporter stood outside Ian's former company headquarters. In a shocking development, federal investigators have uncovered similar fraud schemes at 3 other major corporations, all linked to offshore accounts identified in the Santiago case. Your story didn't just take down Ian, Andrea said. It's causing a domino effect. The FBI is calling it the biggest corporate fraud bust in a decade. Travis tugged at my sleeve. Can we hang Daddy's picture in my room now? Of course, baby. I turned back to the phone. Andrea, I need to go. Travis and I have some redecorating to do. Wait, check your email first. Someone wants to talk to you. I opened my laptop to find a message from a major publishing house. They wanted me to write a book about our story. Not just the legal battle, but the human side. How a mother and son found strength in the truth their father left behind. What do you think? Andrea asked. I watched Travis carefully removing Casey's photo from its frame. People need to know they can fight back, that the truth matters. The doorbell rang. Isla stood on the porch with a moving box labelled Casey's Notes. Found these at my lake house, she said. Thought you might want them for the book. How did you know about... Please, she smirked. Who do you think recommended you to the publisher? Travis ran to hug her. Aunt Isla, want to help me hang Daddy's picture? While they headed upstairs, I opened the box. Inside were Casey's handwritten notes about his investigation, but also personal letters he'd written to Travis, one for each birthday until he turned 18. He really did think of everything, Isla said, returning downstairs. Mom, Travis called. Come see. In his room, Travis had created a memory wall. Casey's photo hung in the center, surrounded by drawings, ticket stubs, and small mementos. He'd even added the newspaper clipping about Ian's conviction, though I suspected he didn't fully understand it yet. It's perfect, I said, hugging him. My phone chimed with a text from Judge Reynolds. Thought you'd want to know. Your case inspired 3 other whistleblowers to come forward. You're starting a movement. Isla read the message over my shoulder. She's right. People are talking. About standing up to corruption, about fighting for their families. I just wanted to protect my son, I said. And you did more than that, Isla replied. You showed others they could protect theirs too. Travis pulled out Casey's old copy of The Great Gatsby, the book he'd been reading when we met. Can you read this to me? That's a bit advanced for you, buddy. Please, Daddy wrote notes in it. I opened the book, finding Casey's familiar scribbles in the margins. He'd underlined one passage. They were careless people. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness. How about we start with these instead? I pulled out the birthday letters. Travis settled into my lap as I opened the first envelope. Casey's words filled the room. Dear Travis, by the time you read this, you might understand why I had to fight. But what I want you to know most is how much I love you. Isla quietly excused herself as Travis and I read letter after letter, each one revealing more of Casey's heart, his hopes, his determination to protect us even after he was gone. The afternoon sun cast long shadows through the window when we finished the last letter. Travis had fallen asleep, clutching his father's photo. My laptop screen glowed with the publisher's email, cursor blinking in the reply box. I began typing, "I'll tell our story. Not just about corruption and justice, but about a father's love, a mother's strength, and a little boy who helped uncover the truth by finding a key in the roots of an old oak tree." Outside, life went on. Companies reformed their practices, whistleblowers came forward, families found their voices. But in that quiet room, holding my sleeping son, I felt Casey's presence stronger than ever. We'd done more than survive. We'd helped change things. And somewhere I knew Casey was smiling.